those are built-in primal behaviors in human beings, especially with unchecked power. And I think that as long as we're just human beings, we're going to have those things. We'll have less and less of them. We have way less now than we had during fucking King Henry VIII. Like, back during King Henry VIII, you couldn't have a podcast. He would fucking kill you. When he wanted to get rid of his wives, he just chopped their fucking heads off. Oh, get a new one. Get rid of her. Off with her head.
You couldn't do that now.
Thing, right? Was it Henry VIII that was off with their head? Wasn't he the guy? He had like a few of them.
He would, yeah, now it would be, his wife would make a TikTok about it in a heartbeat, I feel like. Or her sister would.
Oh, yeah. She would like, that motherfucker. There's nothing wrong with her head. He said her head was cursed.
Henry is lying.
Yeah, nowadays are different, man. So there's that's like Steven Pinker's work. If you follow his work on violence and crime, people always want to think that violence and crime is more now than ever before. But the reality is, when you look at the course of human history, there's never been a more safe time to be alive than right now.
What do you think it looks like coming up? Do you think like people start to if like people continue to be so like full of fear, do people like resort back to like their tribal nature, or what kind of starts to happen?
They definitely do if the power goes out. The only thing that keeps society together is power. As soon as power goes out, you have no electricity, you have no cooling, so you can't stay in places where it's too hot, and you can't live in places where it's too cold. Yeah. You're in a bad spot there. So then, if you're living in a place where it's too cold, you're heavily dependent upon firewood. So a big part of your day is getting firewood. You have to make sure you have enough. If you're living in Siberia, you have to have a fucking shit pile of firewood, and you never let that fire go out.
I'd get a bunch.
Never. You need to have a bunch.
I would. I did that earlier.
You gotta keep that fucking fire going, man, because if you're stuck out there and it's 70 degrees below zero, like, you'll die.
Dude, imagine you fall asleep and it fucking goes out, and you have to wake up the other people.
And a lot of these guys aren't using matches to start fires either, because, you know, that's one of the things that survivalists will tell you is, like, you're gonna run out of matches. You should learn how to start a fire without matches. So you gotta learn how to start a fire with steel and flint, and you know, it's so fucking not easy. There's some fire starters you can get, like, they're pretty good.
Have you seen people do it, like when you go hunting and stuff? You have?
I've done it, yeah. I've started fires with these little flint sticks, so it's like a piece of steel and a piece of flint, and there's these little things called fire starters, and some people make them too. One of the ways they make them is they take cotton balls, like cotton swabs, and they soak them in Vaseline. And so then you take tinder. So you have like some people use steel wool.
Oh yeah.
They use different things that you can like. You can make it with like shavings and dry the shavings out, and then you slowly get little sparks onto those shavings, and then once you get it going, then you put some little sticks on, then you put some bigger sticks on. Now you have a fire.
Yeah.
And they say you should know how to do that because you don't want to be on that last match going fuck. Like, you have to know how to actually start a fire. The best way is with tools. I tried to start a fire when I was in the Boy Scouts with the bow. I don't know if you ever did that one. Like, there's a stick and you're
oh yeah, and you do it like that or whatever.
Forth and back and forth. I got it
Cotton Eye Joe or whatever.
I got it to smoke. I got blackness came out of it. I never got a fire.
Damn.
I never got it to the point where I could like light something on fire there.
Yeah.
But I was also dumb. I didn't realize you gotta like put little tiny pieces of wood down in there. Once it starts going, then blow on it. I thought it was a fire was gonna get going.
Just fucking go, huh?
I thought that thing was gonna light fire eventually. Yeah, it didn't.
What in Scotland did you see any good music? AC/DC's from Scotland.
Oh yeah.
That's what I was thinking of earlier when we were talking. For those, no, that's not them.
Those about to rock.
Is that them?
Fire, we from Australia.
AC/DC is?
Yeah, you son of a bitch.
Why are you changing it? What? He keeps changing it.
He keeps changing it. It's like Berenstein Bears. You know? It's like the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
What, yeah, what's a famous band that is from Scotland then?
Take that back. 2 of the members are from Glasgow, so.
Oh, Jimmy. Came at you hard there. Hard there.
What else do they sing? AC/DC.
Long Way to the Top.
Yeah.
Back in Black.
Hell's Bells.
Yeah, Hell's Bells. Yeah. Whole Lot of Rosie.
I heard that one.
Whole Lot of Woman. Yeah, you have. Whole Lot of Rosie. You know that song.
Maybe I have heard it.
You never heard that song? Come on, son.
Say it again.
Listen, give me a whole lot of Rosie. You gotta hear this. You never heard this song? There's no way you never heard this song. This is a Bon Scott AC/DC classic, the early days.
That's a shit.
Wasn't it Bon Scott? Come on!
Those were the fucking days, dude.
It's just picking up. Give me a little more. Oh, we're in trouble already. We're in trouble. It's your show. It's your show.
That's true. We're in trouble, dude. Yeah, we probably won't be able to play that. What's it? Hold on.
Edit that out. They will come for you. Did you see that Facebook put out new standards today for content moderation?
No, I did see that they're supposed to that Dana White was doing something with Mark Zuckerberg, and that they were
part of his board now,
and that they were going to allow more free speech. That's what they said.
They're going to allow more free speech and allow people to not be restricted to talk about things that were hot button issues before. It's great, and they're going to remove the content moderation for a type of community notes. Facebook and Instagram get rid of fact checkers. The problem with fact checkers is there's been a lot of fact checkers that were just wrong and very ideologically based. Especially anything that has to do with climate change or anything that has to do with vaccines or anything that has to do with anything pharmacologically.
Yeah, it says in a video posted alongside a blog post by the company on Tuesday, Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg said third-party moderators were too politically biased and it was time to get back to our roots around free expression. But do you think they're really... I wonder if there's something else going on, because I find it hard to believe they're really willing to give up that bias, you know?
It's probably not good for business to keep that bias. They're in a business, all right? Their business is social media, and if Twitter sets the standard, which it clearly does, so Twitter is the most wild of all big platforms. You can get away with a lot of shit on Twitter.
Yeah.
That has not been the case with Facebook or Instagram. And if Twitter continues to have the kind of engagement that it has because it lets people go wild, and I know there's a lot of criticisms about even Twitter's content moderation, but everybody has to admit it's certainly better than everywhere else.
Yeah.
It's like there's a dispute now about whether or not people should be demonetized, right? Whether if you're allowed to speak on the platform, if they can say, you're saying things we don't like, we're going to be able to take away your ability to make money. But you're kind of censoring people in a way, because you're enforcing self-censorship. Because they're not going to say those inflammatory things anymore, because then they need a Adrian Dittman account, right?
Right.
Talk some shit, blow a little steam off.
Well, I wonder,
a little shit about the government.
Is AI? But how do we know that the information in AI isn't being adjusted to fit whatever they want it to say? Like, that's what one thing I always thought. Like,
well, it is. Right. It certainly is. Like, that was the problem with Google's Gemini when it first came out. You know, Google's Gemini, when it first came out, they said make images of Nazi soldiers. They had multicultural Nazi soldiers. Did you see that? Oh, you have to see it. You have to see it. You're going to freak out.
They had all types of Nazi soldiers?
Black Nazi soldiers. They had a Native American Nazi.
Oh, at least everybody
They
was
had Chinese Nazis. It's so dumb. But it's like, that's when you try to be woke and you attach it to everything. Look, oh, well, you're not representing reality. I said show me Vikings, not Chinese midgets. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Why are you showing me this? Because it's woke is not reality. And if you do that with AI, like, look at this. Look at those images. Look at that. It looks like guys from fucking Nigeria, the lower left-hand corner. Look at the Native American lady with her braids. That's so crazy. That's a Nazi soldier.
She's a cutie, kind of.
She is kind of cute. But look at that. That's nuts. Right? So if that's artificial intelligence, that's not intelligent at all. Right. You're ignoring the reality of what a Nazi looked like.
Right, but you'd only need a couple generations that it feels like to end up just brainwashing
100%.
Like, that's the thing that's super scary. It's like, instead of controlling like what people write, you control what the paper will say, right?
100%.
It's almost like controlling
he who controls the AI controls the narrative of the whole country. And it's going to be smarter than you and me. Like, you and me, if we have an opposition to something, maybe we could say it in a funny way. Maybe we can, like, relate to people because they know the way we think. But AI is going to be way better at communicating. So it's going to be like, we're going to look stupid. Like, have you ever had a debate with someone who's way smarter than you and they're making more points than you and you're stuck?
Your episode a little while ago.
It's frustrating, right? But you're trapped and you're like, fuck, I articulates this as well.
Most of my life is like that.
Right. So imagine that, but with the smartest people in the world not being able to keep up, because AI is going to literally be like not just the smartest person in the world, but all of the smartest people in the world together.
Wow. Fuck. Yeah, that's it. I just worry then whoever controls that is going to control everything.
Exactly. And these fucking eggheads that are running us towards the edge of the cliff have to do what they're doing because China's doing it and they're stealing our data for sure. You know,
But let them have it. What are they getting?
they're replicating our research. They're making AI as well. They're way ahead in a lot of stuff, man. Way ahead. China's way ahead in drone technology. Way ahead.
But what is it? Somebody could, like, sometimes I guess with drone they can come and I guess eavesdrop, they can see what's going
Commercial
on.
drones. Okay, I don't know what the military has, and this was like a big subject of the Sean Ryan podcast the other day. Do you know about this?
Yeah, they had a guy on there who came through and said that, that Liversburg guy?
The guy who supposedly blew himself up in the Tesla Cybertruck in front of Trump Tower.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a guy who came on the Sean Ryan podcast and said that this dude, Matthew Livelsberger, is that what they say, who apparently was on a television show 12 years ago with Tim Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Green Beret TV show where they did Green Beret shit.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So this guy wrote this manifesto. He sent this, I wouldn't say a manifesto, but a statement. And in that statement, there was no indication he was going to blow himself up in that statement, by the way. The statement was just talking about what he knew. And what was the problem was that these Chinese drones are operating on this anti-magnetic technology and that we have this technology as well.
Was that the stuff that the guy who came on here was talking about that time?
Here's what he says. What we've been seeing with drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered by aircraft, most recently China in the East Coast, but throughout history, the U.S. only. Only we in China have this capability. Our open location for this activity in the box is below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it's just a show of force, and they're using it similar to how they use the balloon for Signet and ISR, which are also part of the integrated comm system. There are dozens of these balloons in the air at any given time. So what is, because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned AC, they are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. Wow. The U.S. government needs to give the history of this, how they're employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them, and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast.
Do you think that this is just, this seems to me also like a fear tactic?
It could be. It could be. You know,
because it feels
when
big
someone
like that
releases a letter like that and then blows themselves up.
To increase this number, 600, 700, 800, Russia can't make progress on the ground. Their ground forces are terrible. So this is the only thing Russia thinks they can do, terrorizing civilian cities. Russia is trying to make this as complicated as possible. The yellow is the Shahid drones. The red is air-launched cruise missiles. The green is sea-launched cruise missiles. And then the blue is ground-launched ballistic missiles. This is not a mistake. Some of these drones did enter Moldova. Russia doesn't care. And I have to just share the headlines. This is from June 27th. Russian strike kills 5, wounds 23 in Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk. All of these are civilian casualties. Russia is deliberately targeting civilians every night. Russian attack against Ukraine kills 10, injures at least 50. This was June 28th. And then we don't have the final casualty numbers from this morning. This is what President Zelensky said this morning. Almost all night long, air raid alerts sounded across Ukraine. 477 drones were in our skies, most of them Russian-Iranian Shaheeds, along with 60 missiles of various types. The Russians were targeting everything that sustains life. A residential building in Smila was also hit, and a child was injured. Emergency services are responding wherever they're needed. Tragically, while repelling the attack, our F-16 pilot, Maxim Ustimenko, died. Today, he destroyed 7 aerial targets. My condolences to his family and brothers in arms. I have instructed that all the circumstances of his death be investigated. Ukrainian aviation is heroically protecting our skies. I am grateful to everyone who is defending Ukraine. This is a sad story. F-16 pilot killed while repelling Russia's most massive yet night terror against Ukraine. Eternal flight, brother. You did everything you could. This is a picture of Lieutenant Colonel Maxim Ustimenko. He was 33 years old. And he gave his life for his country, shooting down drones and missiles destined for churches, hospitals, schools, and apartment buildings. This won't be the last time Ukraine loses an F-16. With 500 plus missiles and drones in the skies, along with F-16s and jets, along with air defense missiles, along with guys on the backs of trucks just shooting blankly into the sky, hoping to shoot down some of these drones. This is chaos. No other air force in the world would fly under these conditions, but Ukraine has no choice. Ukraine has no other option. And every time these F-16 pilots take off to the skies to shoot down these missiles and drones, they know it might be their last flight, but they still go anyways. So that was the bad news for Ukraine. The rest of this video is bad news for Russia. Ukrainian drones strike 4 fighter jets in Russia's Volgograd Oblast. This is the Russian airbase Barr-Nunn. Here's where it's located on the map. And Ukraine successfully struck it with some drones, completely destroying 2 Su-34 fighter jets and damaging an additional 2. We know this is true because Russian military bloggers have confirmed it. This is the popular Telegram channel Fighter Bomber. There is no point in commenting on Marinofka, another multi-billion-dollar loss that could and should have been prevented. And it would have been nice if not only the Ukrainians were held accountable for it. Otherwise, it will continue like this. This is this Russian military blogger saying that base commanders should be punished whenever they lose fighter jets. I am sure that we will respond to this with a bunch of angry and decisive Telegram posts. The Russians are mad. We got satellite confirmation this morning. This is what the destroyed planes now look like. I'm sure Russia attempted to clean it up or clear the debris, but the satellites got the picture. This is a big deal. These were planes that were being actively used every single day. And now Russia has to find alternatives if they want to continue carrying out these glide bomb attacks. Ukraine strikes Crimea again, destroys Russia's Panzer air defense system and some helicopters. This is also a big deal. Ukrainian drone strike on Crimea destroys 3 Russian helicopters, according to the SBU. I'm trusting what Ukrainian intelligence is saying because whenever they claim they destroyed something, we do eventually get confirmation from Russian military bloggers or satellite images. There are some videos showing a fire in the distance at this air base in Crimea, but we don't have visual proof yet. All we have is the firm's data saying that an Mi-8, an Mi-26, and an Mi-28 were damaged or destroyed, along with a Panzer surface-to-air missile defense system. Pretty nice. This was a good evening if we can get rid of some of these attack helicopters. Watch as Ukraine's FPV drones strike Russia's prized S-400 air defense system in occupied Crimea. This is the video. I'll link it down below. And what I'm guessing is that Ukraine uses drone boats to get close to the coastline of Crimea. They then launch FPVs from the drone boats. Somehow this has video feed playing back, the captured video of the destruction of this S-400 battery system. I don't remember how much each of these cost, but this is a big deal anytime you can get one of the radars. Let's keep going. Drone wipes out Kim Jong-un's rocket system in Ukraine. Initially confirmed in Russian service only in April of this year, the vehicle was located and neutralized in the Donetsk Oblast. This is a North Korean-made multiple launch rocket system. North Korea has been donating these now to the Russian military. Ukraine spotted one with a surveillance drone, and there's a video of it blowing up. I'll link it down below if you want to watch it. Let's now get to the bad, very bad economic news. Russia's central bank governor has said Russia's resources are now exhausted. Without investment and reforms, the economy will stall. Since the invasion, Russia's national wealth fund has dropped by 2/3, from 107 billion to 35 billion. Russia's economy minister also warned that Russia is on the verge of a transition to recession. He called the next phase of Russia's economic planning decisive. Putin is ignoring them. Putin is insisting nothing is wrong, keep going, everything is great. But Moscow is burning through reserves to cover deficits. The so-called post-war recovery was entirely built on liquid assets, money that the Russians had saved up, gold reserves, hard currency, but that capital is now gone, while the budget still bleeds. Losing $300 billion in frozen assets is a price worth paying to break Western grip on global finance. This is what Putin is saying, that his $300 billion in frozen foreign reserves, just say goodbye to it. It's worth it to stop the West from influencing what Russia wants to do, which is to be an empire again. But Putin in his speech did recognize that the economy is experiencing problems. Central bank rates are still over 20%. Inflation year over year is still over 10%. There's a massive labor shortage because all the men are dying in this war or fleeing the country to avoid draft or mobilization. But let me share with you Putin rambling off some numbers. No clue if any of this is true. You can't trust anything the Russians say, but this is what Putin is saying. Now for the spending itself, is 6.3% a lot or little? 6.3% of Russia's GDP for defense is about 172 billion US dollars. And our entire GDP is about 2.8 trillion. Is 13.5 from 223 a lot or little? That's a lot. We paid for it with inflation, but we are now fighting this inflation. Yes, we are purposely moving towards a soft landing for the economy in some respects. Basically, Putin is admitting that they've been deficit spending and spending all of their liquid reserves to keep the economy going while under all of these sanctions from Western countries. But you can't do that forever. Eventually, there's going to be a breaking point. So Putin is claiming that the economy is heading for a soft landing, and no, it's not. Putin says, I'm ready to scale back military spending to help the budget and to reduce inflation. But no, he's not. I guarantee you he's lying. Why is Putin saying that he's going to spend less on the military when they're currently losing this war in Ukraine? And it's because the entire civilian population of Russia is going to suffer immensely in the short term. Russian businesses take aim at employee bonuses in cost-cutting measures. 1 in 6 companies in Russia are preparing to implement pay cuts, probably with Putin's approval. 16.5% of employers are planning pay cuts next year, and 3% are already starting to do so in the coming months. Production workers, service staff, Young IT specialists are particularly affected. The reason is declining revenue at all these companies. Companies are running out of money, and around 70% of Russian companies are already experiencing a decline in demand. The global economy is slowing, and Russia is going to be impacted the most. So, when you cut salaries while inflation year over year is still 10%, how are Russian families supposed to feed themselves? How are they supposed to pay for utilities and housing and, that once-a-year vacation to Turkey or whatever? This is going to greatly impact Russian society. Putin has been attempting to shield them economically the last 3 years from the worst effects of these sanctions and the war. But Russia's going to have a wake-up call starting this year, and it's going to get really bad going into next year. And it's about to get worse. It's time to move your bill. The senator says Congress will soon vote on new Russian sanctions after talks with Trump. Zelensky had a positive interaction with Trump. They spoke for 50 minutes at the NATO summit in the Netherlands. And maybe Trump has had a change of mind. And Senator Lindsey Graham on ABC This Week says he spoke with Trump himself. And Trump said it was okay to move forward on this sanctions bill.
For the first time yesterday, the president told me, you were playing golf with him. Yeah, I was playing golf with him. He says, it's time to move the bill. There's a waiver in the bill, Mr. President. You're in charge of whether or not it's to be implemented. But we're going to give President Trump a tool in the toolbox that doesn't have today. After the July break, we're going to pass a bill that will allow him to sign. I think we're in good shape, but he has a waiver. It's up.
It doesn't matter. Lindsey Graham just said that Trump gave him permission to bring this bill to the floor after the July 4th holiday weekend, and President Trump said he's going to sign it. Now, Senator Lindsey Graham is spinning it like a weapon or a tool that Trump can use, but there's lots of fantastic provisions in this bill. But this is the Rubicon. We're crossing it. As soon as the Senate votes on this bill and Trump signs it, he's now officially an enemy of Russia. How can Russia spin this that the United States is neutral or the United States is on their side if Trump just signs a massive sanctions bill against their country? This is bad news for the Russians and a positive development. And we have to thank the diplomacy and relentless efforts of President Zelensky. This guy has all the patience in the world. I don't know how he does it. But let me read for you what he said about his positive interaction with Trump at the G7 summit earlier this week. The meeting with President Trump was good. The range of topics was the broadest. We discussed all the issues that interest us. First and foremost, those related to Patriot systems. Trump said once again that he was open to the idea of finding or selling Patriots to Ukraine. How to protect our skies and other steps related to the negotiation process, as well as the sanctions direction, and so on. Our bilateral relations after signing of the relevant agreements. So the range is wide. Further, at our level, we agreed that the defense ministers will communicate. So Umerov should be talking to Pete Hegseth more. Also the U.S. Secretary of State, also our Minister of Internal Affairs, and at various levels, the head of my office, with his counterparts from the American side. On economic issues, our first Deputy Prime Minister, and there are some other American colleagues. So this is the Treasury Secretary Bessent. As I said, we discussed many issues. It is important that the parties will work. It seems to me that the spirit of the conversation itself was productive, and therefore this is a good signal. A good signal for Ukraine is bad news for Russia. Here are some other headlines. These are all terrible news for Russia. Russia postpones S-400 deliveries to India. So India was trying to buy air defense systems from the Russians, and Russia can't complete the delivery because they need these air defense systems for their losing war. But this is the only way that Russia's defense industries can make money. Russia's defense companies basically operate at a loss to produce for the Kremlin, and they make a profit selling to international partners, specifically India or the Middle East. But Russia's not making this money, and they're also destroying their business relations with other countries. If Russia can't deliver on their contracts, then you need to be buying from someone else. Iran is now planning to purchase Chinese J-10 fighter jets instead of Russian Su-35s. Once again, I'm sure there's production issues, but Iran's pretty pissed at Russia because Israel bombed them and the Russians did nothing. They did nothing to help their ally. So this is the Iranians saying we can't rely on the Russians, and we now need closer ties with the Chinese. So Iran is going to start buying fighter jets from China instead of Russia. I also want to share this photograph. This is from Masya. She's an Iranian journalist, and this is a shocking photograph. Today in Iran, these were the top Islamic Revolutionary Guard commanders, men who spent their whole lives crushing dissent, torturing the innocent, silencing voices, and ruling through fear. They lived above the law. Untouchable, unquestioned, and now, just boxes. No legacy, no honor. These are coffins of all the people, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard commanders that Israel assassinated. I'm not going to miss these guys. A lot of these guys were coordinating and helping the Russians with their war against Ukraine. And now they're dead. As the new Syrian regime gains legitimacy, it is pushing Russia out. The new Syrian authorities are rapidly moving towards international recognition beyond their regional neighbors. Basically, the European Union and the United States have begun lifting sanctions on Syria. If the new government of Syria can have normal relations with Europe and normal relations with the United States, then why do they need to do business with Iran or Russia anymore? This is what is happening here. The lifting of Western sanctions makes cooperation with Moscow even more problematic for Damascus, since Russia itself remains so heavily sanctioned. Syria effectively needs to choose whether to cooperate with the Russians or the Western alliance. It's not a tough choice. The new government of Syria doesn't want to be associated with Russia, because Russia is losing this war. So let's now get to the mole in the EU. Hungary survey claims 95% oppose Ukraine's EU accession, called primitive manipulation. Viktor Orban did like a poll or some kind of referendum, which not many people participated in, and he got a 95% vote saying that the people of Hungary do not want Ukraine to join the European Union. That's just not possible. Like, you can't get a 95-5 vote on almost anything, let alone a vote to have Ukraine join the European Union. So this was a BS poll. Viktor Orban is kind of getting desperate. And this is a pride parade or a pride protest happening in Hungary. And Viktor Orban tried to block it. He tried to cancel it. This then led to more people turning out for it, and it basically turned into an anti-Orban rally as well as a pride rally. It's estimated that 400,000 Hungarians participated in the event.
How can I be of service?
Once again, also demonstrating their opposition to Viktor Orban and his government. Here's a video of the protesters or marchers. They're not really protesting, they're just coming out to show their support for Pride, as well as saying F you to their prime minister. But Viktor Orban is getting nervous because Russia's not doing well. Ukraine and NATO, that would mean war with Russia and World War III the very next day. Meanwhile, the EU's reckless rush to admit Ukraine would pull the front lines into the heart of Europe. This isn't diplomacy, it's insanity. You don't throw matches on a powder keg. We won't let them turn Europe into a battlefield. If Ukraine joining NATO would mean Hungary is now involved in World War III, then Hungary, you can just leave NATO. You don't have to be part of the alliance. If you drop out and NATO and Russia go to war, you can be neutral. You can be Switzerland. You can be Austria. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. And this has Viktor Orban very upset. His collapsing support and poll numbers at home is getting him pretty flustered.
The problem is the war. The problem is the war. The problem is the war.
When can we get rid of this guy? And Hungarian elections are now scheduled for April of 2026. This is in about 9 months, and Orban's not going to make it a free and fair election, but if the turnout is overwhelming and if people take to the streets, I think he can be finally removed. Another Russian ally, Serbia, is also experiencing political upheaval. This is a massive student-led protest. Tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people took to the streets demanding new elections. The president of Serbia, Vučić, he's been in charge of the country for 12 years and he's not very popular, but Serbia has to make a choice. Remain part of the old Russian system that dominated the Balkans for decades, or move forward. Join the European Union. Have serious democratic and economic reforms and integrate your country, cultures, economy into the rest of Europe. Seems like a better deal, but I'm not even European, so whatever. The protests were entirely peaceful until the Serbian authorities showed up, and there were minor skirmishes between the riot police and then the protesters. I'll link the videos down below if you want to see the protests. Let's get to some good news for Ukraine. McDonald's to open 10 new restaurants in Ukraine this year, according to the New York Times. McDonald's is not great food. You shouldn't be eating it frequently, but this is a positive economic indicator. If Western companies like McDonald's are expanding their business, then that means they're not concerned about Ukraine economically collapsing or the government in Kyiv collapsing anytime soon. When Western companies keep their business, let alone expand, this is a positive economic indicator for Ukraine. Netherlands funds 20 hybrid-powered battlefield vehicles for Ukraine's wounded soldier rescues. These are these little trucks that can get in and out quickly, try and save lives and stabilize wounded defenders. Thank you so much to the Dutch. Netherlands and Belgium hand over 2 mine hunters to boost Ukraine's naval defenses. Once again, thank you to the Dutch and thank you to the Belgians. The first batch of Australian donated M1 Abrams tanks have arrived in Poland, and they'll be loaded on trains to cross the border pretty soon. Australia announced months ago that they were donating 49 M1 Abrams tanks. They had to go back to the United States to be refurbished, but Trump sent them. Trump could have blocked the transfer of these tanks. And now these M1 Abrams tanks, it's an older model, but still perfectly capable. But it is kind of sad that Australia has donated more Abrams tanks to Ukraine than the United States has. So I wanted to mention that, but thank you so much to all the Aussies out there. The final video I want to share with you is the President and the First Lady meeting with the President of Poland, this is Duda, and they visited the Wall of Heroes, paying their respects to the fallen. Let me share this clip. continue supporting Ukraine, Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Until the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy. Welcome back, defenders. The hits just keep on coming. Ukraine's intelligence claims it attacked the Crimean Bridge with an underwater bomb. The SBU has carried out another bold and unique special operation, striking the Crimean Bridge for the third time since Russia's full-scale invasion, this time from underwater. Ukraine has already successfully struck this bridge twice, the first time in 2022 with a car bomb, the second time in 2023 with drone boats, and somehow Ukraine was able to plant an explosive device on the structural column of the archway. Nobody was harmed, nobody was killed, so I can show this video. I'm going to slow the speed down to 0.25 for you, and we can watch this together. My first question is, how does Ukraine have this security cam video? Meaning, they've already hacked the security cameras on the Crimean Bridge. They have the feed and they released it to the public. But somehow Ukraine was able to plant an explosive on the structural column under the archway, and that's the detonation. What is the fallout? What is the damage? And it's too soon to tell. This bomb went off at 4:44 a.m. in the morning, local time, and the blast was equivalent to 1,100 kilograms of TNT. Now, bridges are very difficult to bring down. They're pretty sturdy, but this is a weak point for the bridge because this is where the archway is located. So the archway is where boats pass underneath. There needs to be a big enough gap for, oil tankers and cargo vessels to go under it. And the Black Sea floor-bed is not very solid. This is soft sediments that have to go pretty deep. So Russia, to construct this bridge, I am not a civil engineer, but you can see from this diagram there are support columns going pretty deep, 72 meters it says. And we don't know. Russia doesn't know what the damage is. Perhaps the water absorbed most of the blast, or maybe under this support column this is all broken straws at this point. Russia is going to, of course, claim that the damage is minimal and the bridge is fine, but I guarantee you the bridge is not fine. We just don't know exactly how bad it is at this point. I also want to point out that this is interesting that Ukraine went for the archway. Previously, they went for just one of the road spans, and if a road span collapses, obviously Russia was able to repair it when this happened in 2022. But by going for the archway, if this archway collapses, one, it's not being repaired anytime soon, but two, this is where the cargo fleets, this is where the ships go under. So if the bridge archway collapses, Russia can't get their exports out from the Sea of Azov. All of the ships coming from Rostov-on-Don have to go under that archway. This is what Ukraine was trying to do, and this is pretty bold. This was breaking as of this morning. I don't have any more information for you at this time. We're going to get updates in 2 days. Russia, of course, is going to say everything is fine. Ukraine probably is going to say it's not fine. We'll know more in my next update video.
Unless Trevor tells me to.
But we now have to follow up on Operation Spiderweb. Kremlin was brought to its knees. Russians react to Ukraine's devastating strike on 41 warplanes. Now, Ukraine's intelligence is sticking to their guns, saying that they successfully damaged or destroyed 40 or more planes in Russia's strategic bomber fleet. Russia only has about 120 of these bombers, so that's 34% of their bomber fleet. And initially, the global media reaction is, this is an escalation from Ukraine to attack Russia's nuclear bomber fleet. And this is President Zelensky refuting this argument. When asked by journalists whether yesterday's operation might enrage the Russians, I responded that just a day earlier, Russia had launched a massive overnight attack of Ukraine, over 400 drones and missiles. They struck civilian infrastructure, residential buildings, there were casualties, people killed and injured. This happens every single day. Sometimes there's a short pause, and to be honest, we now call it a pause if there's just no one killed that night. But even then, drones still fly, and people get wounded. These so-called pauses just mean fewer attacks than usual, but we're still talking about dozens of drones and cruise missiles. So no one cares whether Russia is angry. What matters is that Russia must move toward ending this war, and as a global community, we must all do what we can to stop them. This was a residential building destroyed by a KH-101 missile launched from a Tu-95 bomber, a bomber that Ukraine just destroyed. This was an apartment building destroyed by a Russian KH-22 missile launched from a Tu-22 bomber that Ukraine just destroyed. In this war, there's never been a more appropriate action than for Ukraine to destroy these bombers that Russia has been using to blow up apartment buildings. What is the true damage assessment now that it's been 48 hours? Satellite images reveal wreckage of Russia's strategic bombers after Ukraine's spiderweb drone operation. And the satellite images aren't great in that we don't really have clear, high-resolution images. Why don't we have them after 2 days? And if it's cloudy, you're not getting satellite images. So my speculation is, with these 5 air bases that were targeted, maybe it's been cloudy the last 2 days. But what has been released is pretty telling. This is satellite images just from the Belya Air Base. This one is also Belya. And from these satellite images, the experts are saying that we've got 3 destroyed Tu-95s, 1 possible damaged Tu-95, 1 destroyed Tu-22s, 3 destroyed Tu-22Ms. We have the before and after, based on that 1 satellite image alone. This was released by Radio Free Europe. And you can see that some of the bombers are gone. We have the before and then the after. I think if a plane was just damaged, Russia would have moved it before the satellite images could be taken. So what we're seeing are just the planes that burned to the ground, where everything fell apart and basically the center of the plane disintegrated from the flames when the fuel tanks were hit. So what is the true number? And we don't know, but visually confirmed either on the ground or from satellite images, this is what independent experts are saying. At the Alenia Air Base, 4 Tu-95 destroyed, 1 damaged, 1 AN-22 destroyed. At the Belya Air Base, 3 Tu-95 destroyed, 1 damaged, and then 4 Tu-22s destroyed. At the Ukrainka Air Base, 1 Tu-95 damaged or destroyed. At the Ivano Air Base, 1 Ilyushin 76 and the A-50 AWACS plane. We'll talk about that in a second. And then at the Deglivo Air Base, none confirmed so far. This is a big deal. Chinese satellite images show a destroyed Russian A-50 AWAC plane. The AWAC is the early warning radar plane, and Russia doesn't have very many of these. This one plane is worth $350 million. If Operation Spiderweb with these drones and cargo shipping containers only got this one plane, this would be a tremendous military victory. All the other planes, the bombers are great. They're all worth about $100 million each. But Russia does not have very many of these planes. Only 10 were ever built by the Soviets. Going back to February of 2022, it was speculated that only 5 were operational. They were cannibalizing parts from the 5 that are out of commission to keep the current 5, their service life maintained. And Ukraine's already destroyed 2 of these. They were shot down by Patriot missiles over the Black Sea, also over Krasnodar. So if this third A-50 was destroyed, potentially Russia only has one or two of these still in operation for their entire Air Force, to cover the Arctic Circle, to cover the Pacific, to cover the Chinese border, to cover the Caspian Sea. One potentially is still operational. Here's a graphic showing Russia's 122 bombers. That's all they have left from Soviet production. Russia cannot produce any more of these planes. Ukrainian intelligence is still claiming they got about 40 destroyed or damaged. But once again, the independent assessments based on first-hand eyewitnesses or satellite images, it's 10 or 12. This is still a huge victory, even if it's 10, when these planes are worth $100 million each or more. What are the Russians saying? And according to Russian military bloggers, they're putting the number at 18. 18 planes damaged or destroyed, including that very important A-50 AWACS plane.
In my day,
This was the best prize. Russia still has bombers. Russia is still going to be launching cruise missiles.
Going straight.
But Russia cannot easily adjust on the front lines, as well as maintaining their global security apparatus, if they truly only have one A-50 left. This is a big deal.
But I want to see how you
President Zelensky also revealed this interesting information. Even before this operation was carried out, we had intelligence indicating that Russia was preparing another massive strike.
and you would pull it off.
Potentially, what was this massive strike? Russia was planning Operation Zeus's Lightning, the largest ever cruise missile attack on all of Ukraine for the night of June 1st, to force Ukraine's hand at the Istanbul peace talks the next day. Ukrainian drones destroyed many of these very bombers, which were already fueled hours before they were scheduled to take off. Wow. This is coming from a Kremlin-funded blog called Zargrad, which was published on May 31st. Zeus's Lightning. Good job, Russia. What did we learn from Operation Spiderweb? And there's a couple important takeaways. Trump was not given a heads up on Ukraine's far-reaching drone strikes in Russia. This is according to White House officials. So first thing we know is that Russia does not have any spies in Ukraine's inner circle. Whatever closed group that Zelensky was sharing this information with, none of them leaked this intelligence to the Russians. So there are no Russian spies in Zelensky's inner circle. But also, there are no American spies. If anyone in Zelensky's inner circle was feeding intelligence to the United States, Trump and the CIA would have found out. But the West had no clue. Russia had no clue. Ukraine was able to independently and secretly carry out this massive operation. This is insanely impressive. Ukraine's audacious drone attacks are a recipe for Russian paranoia. This is the after effects that's going to greatly help Ukraine in this war, because now Russia's intelligence services, one, they're incredibly embarrassed, but two, they now have to take precautions against shipping containers that might contain kamikaze FPV drones. We're already seeing the effects. Russia is putting up barricades and checkpoints everywhere to check the trucks of every truck in Russia. And you can only do this for so long, like for the next couple weeks. I think Russia's going to take this serious, but this requires manpower, this requires time, and this economically hinders and slows down the country. All of these trucks are now going to be delayed in their deliveries, which has a negative economic impact on the Russian economy.
Customers will probably be thinking that.
And then there's Putin. Where's Putin? Anytime something disastrous happens for the Russian states, Putin's standard go-to move is to disappear for 72 hours. The sinking of the Kursk submarine, the terrorist attacks in Moscow and the Caucasus. Anytime something embarrassing happens for Russia, Putin just retreats and disappears for a couple days, and then When he reemerges, he pretends like nothing happened.
You're going to need to hack into its security system.
Putin doesn't know how to respond to this. There is no response that Russia...
It's probably a good idea.
The threats that Russia can do more, or that Russia is going to now take this war seriously after 3.5 years. That is the most pathetic cope I get from comments of people still supporting Russia. Russian propagandists are split between downplaying the devastating Ukrainian attacks and issuing more threats. So let's pretend you work at RT News. Do you pretend like this didn't happen? Do you say this was devastating and Ukraine still possesses this capability 3.5 years into the war? When Ukraine is able to attack the Crimean Bridge or destroy an A-50 AWACS plane, this goes counter to the narrative that Ukraine is about to collapse, that Ukraine is still fighting this war on its last leg, and the war might be over soon.
I'm calling Paige.
This is what the Russian state media apparatus tells their people every day. Ukraine is almost defeated. Continue supporting Putin. But no, this war is nowhere near over. Russia is no closer to winning. Russia today controls less of Ukraine than they did 3 years ago.
Lester, the place looked good.
This is stupid.
Weren't expecting. Can you get the intel together?
I did show this clip. This is a Russian conscript, I think at the Olenya Air Base,
I'll be over to collect it.
and I'm guessing he was on anti-aircraft duty, and he managed to film himself showing Russia's strategic bombers on fire. This clip went viral. He probably didn't mean for it to go viral, but this kid is now in serious trouble, and Solyov on Kremlin State TV is calling for this conscript to be executed. The videos that appeared from there were shot by conscripts. Is it possible to just shoot this conscript, to bring this bastard in front of the whole unit and shoot him like a traitor to the motherland?
Where were we? Matt.
Yeah, he screwed up showing his face. If he had just posted the video and didn't show his face, maybe he would have gotten away with it, but Solyov is now calling for the execution of this Russian conscript who filmed their burning planes.
Come out there, and if you're ever caught, you keep your mouth shut.
This is what we're supposed to be talking about this week. Russia has been saving up their offensive strength for a big summer offensive, and we're kind of in the middle of it. Russian offensive attacks surged 19% in May, while attempts at peace talks continue. Just on May 4th, Russian forces launched a record 269 assault operations across the front lines. I'm not doing map updates for you because they're not making any progress. If they conducted 269 assault operations, sure, they took some wheat fields somewhere, but mostly they just died. Russia just sends their soldiers to die in meat wave attacks, wave after wave. Russia shatters drone record, launches 472 drones at Ukraine the night before Ukraine got their strategic bombers. But this is what Russia wants the world thinking about and talking about. 479 cruise missiles and drones launched against Ukrainian civilian cities the night before peace talks. Russia's master plan this week was to convince the world that supporting Ukraine was hopeless, and Ukraine's about to lose anyways. So you might as well just let Russia win.
What, they're going to charge us with thought crime?
And Ukraine stole the narrative. They stole the headlines. Ukraine won the propaganda battle this week by far.
These are professional.
Russia and Ukraine agreed to a prisoner swap, but peace talks stall in Istanbul. This is the second round of direct negotiations between the Russians and the Ukrainians in Istanbul. And the meeting lasted just an hour. Only an hour. Were these people able to sit in the same room and talk to each other? And here is the Russian delegation. And remember, this is the day after they lost billions of dollars worth of strategic bombers. They don't look very happy to be at this event. This might come as a shock, but there was no breakthrough. There was no ceasefire announced, no peace deal reached. This is a waste of time. Russia is sending low-level delegates. Lavrov's not there. Peskov's not there. They're sending nobodies to just waste the world's time. Russia did present their peace memorandum. What are Russia's demands? 5 Ukrainian regions, a ban on NATO, limits on Kyiv's army. Russian media publishes Moscow's official peace demands. Here's the list. Full withdrawal of the Ukrainian armed forces from Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, including the regions of Donbass and Little Russia, within 30 days of a ceasefire. International recognition of Crimea, Donbass, and Novorossiya, Little Russia, is being part of Russia. Ukrainian neutrality forever. Elections must be held in Ukraine, followed by the signing of a peace treaty by the new leader, I guess. A ban on the redeployment of Ukrainian armed forces, except for troop withdrawals. A ban on hosting and deploying nuclear weapons in Ukraine. A ban on the supply of Western weapons and intelligence to Ukraine. The lifting of all sanctions and a refusal to introduce new sanctions on Russia. A waiver of mutual claims related to damage caused during hostilities, meaning there will be no reparations from Russia to Ukraine. This was Russia's demands for peace. And I'm going to break it down for you why this is impossible, and this is suicidal for Ukraine even to entertain, which they don't. So Russia, after 3.5 years of war, has failed to take the administrative borders of Donetsk, but they claim they annexed this territory that they've never controlled. So after 3.5 years of failing to take Pokrovsk, Konstantinivka, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Russia just wants to be given this territory. Ukraine has to give up all their defensive lines, all of their fortifications, and just move 50 kilometers back into their own country. The Russians used to control the city of Liman. They want it back, even though they lost it. The Russians want the administrative border of Zaporizhia, a city of 700,000 people. Zaporizhia is bigger than my hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the Russians want their artillery to be allowed to be, once again, brought to the administrative border, putting Russian artillery within striking range of the city of Dnipro. 1 million people. The Russians also want to be given back the north bank of the Dnipro River and the city of Kherson, pre-war population 300,000 people. Russia lost this city on the battlefield. They once controlled it, and now they don't control it. And they want to be granted further artillery to be placed within striking range of Mykolaiv. Mykolaiv is a city of 400,000 people. These demands are not acceptable. Not even Donald Trump, and I think Witkoff is insisting that Ukraine give up more territory for a ceasefire or for a lasting peace. What is Ukraine's reaction to Russia's peace demands? Here are thoughts from Ilya Ponomarenko. Having read that laughable scrap of paper, a grotesque list of demands for total Ukrainian capitulation that the Russians in Istanbul dare to call a peace memorandum, I can only repeat the obvious. Boundless arrogance, bloated conceits, and propagandist bravado have already played a callous joke on Russia in this war against Ukraine. These delusions have cost them 250,000 lives, 4,000 tanks and 8,000 pieces of light armored equipment. Over 3 years of a war, they're now neck deep in. Just yesterday, their cheap imperial hubris cost them a third of their strategic long-range aviation. And still, they stubbornly refuse to turn their brains on. And in the end, this will ultimately destroy them. The Russians don't want a ceasefire. The Russians don't want peace. Because Putin doesn't want a ceasefire. And Putin doesn't want peace. All of this killing, all of this death, this war continues because of only one man. And everybody else in Russia just has to play along. They have to pretend to be dumb. And they have to find a way to continue doing what Putin wants them to do. So here is Solyov on Kremlin State TV, the latest clip from Russian Media Monitor, giving up the game. Russia doesn't want peace. Russia doesn't want a ceasefire. These wars are going to continue until Russia gets their empire back. So in this heated exchange, this is the day after all these planes were destroyed. This commentator is trying to be reasonable, and Solyov is through the roof. This guy is exploding on camera. If you want to hear his voice and what he's saying, I'll link the clip down below. But this is the back and forth exchange he has with one of his panel guests. Did we come closer to peace at this point in time? That's what the commentator is saying. Once again, you don't understand. You are the ones who need peace. Just me? Everyone needs peace. So this is what the commentator is saying back and forth. But Solyov is then going to cut him off and say what this war is really about. No, we need victory. Our goal is completely different. Our goal is to make sure that our country is flourishing and ensure its security for future generations. If Nazi regimes and the political elites that support them have to cease to exist for this to happen, then this is what will happen. We have no goal to preserve the Ukrainian political nation, but we aren't talking about it. We don't need peace. We need victory. Victory. Do you understand? Our conditions are very simple. Our national interests have to be upheld. Peace at any price? A ceasefire? We never said this. Not once. It's true. Putin has never called for a ceasefire, like a 30-day or a lasting ceasefire. Kremlin State TV has never talked about accepting a ceasefire. Do they want peace? Sure. Yeah, they want peace. But Ukraine has to surrender completely and allow itself to be absorbed into the new Russian Empire. There will only be peace when the Ukrainian national identity has been erased. That is genocide. That's their only goal. And they'll continue killing millions and allow millions of their own to die until they achieve that goal of genocide. Zelensky urges Trump to enforce tougher sanctions if peace talks with Russia stall. These peace talks are pointless. They're going nowhere. Russia is not going to negotiate unless they're negotiating from weakness. Russia has to wobble. Their economy, their military has to wobble before Putin will ever entertain a ceasefire or stopping this war. We now have action. Donald Trump is allowing Republicans in Congress to move. John Thune, the majority leader in the Senate, is going to schedule a vote. And we just got confirmation from Speaker Mike Johnson he's going to allow a vote. This is the quote from Jake Sherman. He spoke with or heard from Speaker Johnson. There's many members of Congress that want us to sanction Russia as strongly as we can, and I'm an advocate of this. This is Republican Representative Brian Fitzpatrick. He's leading the charge for the sanctions bill in the House. Thank you, Speaker Johnson, for your support. Now is the time for Congress to act decisively. We must pass my bipartisan Sanctioning Russia Act with Senator Lindsey Graham to hold Putin's regime accountable for refusing to pursue peace, violating Ukraine's sovereignty, and continuing to attack innocent civilians with impunity. This is also from Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Decisive leadership in dangerous times. Mr. Speaker, you're helping President Trump and others who wish to end this war by being willing to hold Putin and China accountable for playing games, not seeking peace. Well done, pray for peace. This vote is happening this week. Sanctions on Russia. Bone-crushing, crippling sanctions on their oil industry and banking sectors. This is being coordinated with the G7 and the European Union. President Zelensky has confirmed this. We did it, guys. We did it. And the Russians are freaking out. Here is Alexander Dugin on Twitter. MAGA, where are you? Aren't we supposed to be on the same side? Didn't Russia spend hundreds of millions of dollars in bot farms and influencers to get Donald Trump elected? To prevent this, to stop additional sanctions, stop additional military aid to Ukraine. And this is Dugin publicly crying out for help from MAGA. But they're distracted. MAGA's been really quiet. Elon Musk has not been attacking Ukraine the last couple months. Donald Trump Jr. has not been attacking Ukraine the last couple months. RFK Jr. has been quiet. Tulsi Gabbard has been quiet. So what are they doing? And Elon Musk this morning, I think, declared war on Donald Trump. I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. Trump at the moment is trying to pass his big, beautiful bill, which will add $4 trillion to the national deficit, bankrupting America, and MAGA doesn't care about the deficits. Republicans don't care about the national debts. It's all about tax cuts for the rich. And even though Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, he still knows that this will destroy America. So I don't know. I mean, this is this morning, 241,000 likes. But the bromance is over.
Come see me.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk never liked each other. They were not friends in 2016. They were not friends in 2020. Elon Musk in the Republican primary supported Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy. So this was always a marriage of convenience, and Elon Musk's approval rating right now is like 25%. People hate him. He realizes this now. He's slow, but he's got it. And these two are no longer working together. I think Elon Musk has given up on trying to save Russia, given up on repeating Kremlin propaganda to hurt Ukraine, and this is having a tangible effect on the information sphere. Like, I can feel it on social media that things today are different than they were even 2 or 3 months ago. Let me quick get some other headlines. This video is going long. Massive drone attack targets Russia's military industrial sites right after surprise spiderweb operation. So after all these bombers were destroyed, Ukraine launched hundreds of drones targeting valid military sites across Russia. We don't have good pictures and videos because if you're a Russian citizen who posts pictures or videos, Soviet calls for your public execution. So we might not be getting good information out of Russia going forward in the future. There are videos showing explosions in the distance. I can link these down below, but there's nothing specific here. Russia's oblasts near Ukraine suffered 2 deadly bridge failures. Explosions were blamed and then denied. And Russia doesn't know what to do. Their propaganda network doesn't know, do we blame Ukraine and admit Ukraine still has this capability? Or do we just claim this was an accident and somebody was smoking where they weren't supposed to smoke? Napa residents decry government inaction over Black Sea oil spill as temperatures rise. Residents of the popular resort town in southern Russia have accused authorities of failing to clean up a toxic oil spill that occurred 6 months ago in the Black Sea. Yeah, Russia's got bigger problems. They're not going to clean up this oil spill. Your oil spill cleanup efforts are weak, Russia. They're weak. One fantastic piece of good news: Norway to help Ukraine cover a €1 billion gas shortfall. Thank you so much to the fantastic people of Norway. Final video, once again, is from Yaroslava. She likes to post videos of just what daily life is like in the capital city of Kyiv. And this is Podil. It's an old part of Kyiv. This is Kontraktava Square, where the Ferris wheel is located. And I'm just going to share this 1-minute clip with you guys.
Before you get to the bank.
continue supporting Ukraine. Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions.
The new future of the Democratic Party. Uh-oh. Here we go.
All right, well, Republicans fight for capitalism. A socialist is now the face of the Democratic Party. They just nominated this guy in New York City on the Democratic side of the aisle.
Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism.
Call myself a democratic socialist. We put forward a plan of Trump-proofing our city, increasing the top corporate tax rate, and increasing income tax.
And that's the best it gets.
In my opinion, if somebody doesn't like capitalism, they should go somewhere else. Like, I think that if you don't like capitalism and you want to replace it, you don't want to have capitalism, just go to a country that doesn't have capitalism. Yeah, get out. Go somewhere else.
Meet Zoran Mamdani. He's campaigning on fundamentally transforming New York into his social paradise.
It is the time for our city to be reborn. A new city with a new politics, where the worker...
I actually think that... So the issue is that, and this is the problem with somebody like this, is that they have a lot of these like extreme retard opinions, but they also have like really down-to-earth, reasonable opinions too. And I think that the first time that the Democratic Party is able to run a candidate like this, that doesn't have all of the weird baggage that this guy has, they're going to have that person win the presidency. But the problem is that every time one of these people emerges, they turn out to be some radical ideologue that has a bunch of reductive ideals. They can't anymore? Yeah, exactly, right? And that's the big issue that they have. Is that, like, this guy, I think he's got great charisma, he's a great speaker, I think he resonates with a lot of the younger people there, a lot of people like him there. Why is it that they can't recreate somebody like this that doesn't have all of this baggage? I don't understand that. You know, so to speak, yeah, he's a great speaker, for sure.
Comes first.
And what is his signature economic policy? Government-run grocery stores.
I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores.
Where have we seen this before? I don't know. Have a look.
Soviet Russia?
The state food stores are called the gastronome shops.
Yeah.
You locate what you want, you stand in line to learn if it's available, then you queue up in another line and buy that particular food ticket. Then you line up again and you acquire the desired food. Unless what you selected has been sold out in the meantime.
Yeah, let's run it like we run the DMV, folks. That's the way to do it. That's what's going to get New York City back on track. Mamdani's...
wouldn't you agree, though, how late-stage capitalism is ruining everything? It's the direct cause of enshittification. This is something who's made multiple videos of, dog. It's fair to have critiques of capitalism, and you for sure. No, not really. I mean, capitalism is the best system in the world, and every country that doesn't use it is a piece of shit. And that's historically been proven with 100% accuracy. I think that a lot of people don't want unregulated capitalism, and they don't want crony capitalism. But that doesn't mean that at a core, that's not clearly the best decision.
Radical policies are sending New Yorkers into a panic. The Wall Street Journal reports that some developers and landlords are making...
And also, and here's another component that a lot of people might not realize, is that a lot of the most negative effects of late-stage capitalism are actually outcomes through regulation that's created and lobbied for by these companies that ensure some sort of monopoly or market control. So most examples and like manifestations of, you know, what people would say, quote, is late-stage capitalism is actually just late-stage corruption. And so you have companies that effectively pull the ladder up on competition. They create regulations so other people can't control the market, they have unfair consumer practices, and so the real core problem there isn't necessarily capitalism, it's the merging with government and business and them working hand in hand. That's really where the issues are. It's corporatism? Yes, exactly. And that's like basically unregulated capitalism is a disaster. And the first thing that happens with unregulated capitalism is the people with all the capital regulated. Like that's what happens instantaneously. And so you have to have regulations, you have to have rules. But at the same time, to say that this kind of stuff is problematic is just completely untrue. The chatter's speaking as if there's a late-stage capitalism has proven successful in history. Private interest always takes priority late game. Yeah, of course it does. If you compare USA and Sweden, both capitalist countries, one's a lot healthier, even with higher taxes. I'd much prefer to live in Sweden. I would. I hear it's a shithole. It's been infested by a bunch of people that are like violent migrants. Yeah, not anymore. Maybe 20 years ago, sure, but not now.
Operations to flee the city, and real estate agents are preparing for an exodus. One agent told the New York Post, quote, "My number one job will be moving people from New York to Florida again." But the New York Times calls him a new political star. And another far-left paper.
He absolutely is. And I think that people have to, there has to be a degree of soul searching in the political community. Why a person like this resonates so much with so many people. You can't just call this guy a radical communist and just, it's the same way, like you couldn't just call Donald Trump a racist and, oh, okay, well, everybody's just going to immediately say, oh, well, oh my God, he's a racist. Oh no, never mind. I can't have these viewpoints anymore. That's not what's going to happen. And so don't do that. Yeah, it didn't work with Donald Trump, and it's not going to work with Zoan either, right? I think that both of these people are people that represent a massive amount of people that have been disenfranchised by a system, and they look towards iconoclastic leaders like someone like Donald Trump or Mandami or anybody else like this. They look at these people as destroyers of the system because they feel like the system has oppressed them. That's the reason why they're symptomatic of systematic issues. Yes, exactly. So you really shouldn't, like, this guy isn't the problem. The problem is that people voted for him. And why did people vote for him? That's your problem. Don't blame him. Blame the voters.
It's encouraging Democratic establishment to follow his example as a blueprint to future elections.
I am delighted, and it's good to see that kind of energy come in.
The relentless focus on affordability had great appeal all across the city of New York.
This is about the message that the people of New York City are trying to send to our party.
That doesn't mean anything.
If Mamdani is the future of the Democrats, the party may be in for a rude awakening come November of 2026. Even the Washington Post editorial board is warning them to, quote, Democrats should fear that he will discredit their...
Never listen to the Washington Post is just some bullshit fucking news article, publication. Every one of these news companies is owned by a large special interest that has a vested interest in making people believe something. So every time you hear somebody get discounted like this by mainstream media and by all of these different places, the reason why Jeff Bezos, yeah, there you go. And this is true with Fox, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, all of this stuff. They're all the same. You should never look at something like this objectively, because it's not objective. There's a goal that these people have in mind.
Next generation of party leaders, almost all of whom are better than this democratic socialist. Ouch! David, this guy's taking a really radical position out here.
Whoa.
Is there any real surprise? I mean, this guy is the Sadiq Khan of New York, and you saw what happened to London under him. This is a playbook that's been underway for a long time. The New York City Council, go back to the Christine Quinn days. I mean, I know we're kind of localizing it, but you got to understand that it's a weak mayor town with a strong leftist city council and, frankly, ineffective Republicans on the council. There's been no opposition to their march in New York State, because it's not just about Montgomery. You talk about the Working Families Party, you talk about Letitia James, who was their candidate all the way to the AG spot, you talk about Kathy Hochul, and now you give them New York City. This is a playbook that works. You look at the SEIU, Leuna 108.
The reason why it works is because he talks about housing. That's the reason why. He talks about issues that directly affect people, and people are willing to put the bullshit, weird views that he has behind them and vote for him anyway. It's the exact reason why people voted for Donald Trump. They might have thought Donald Trump is a psychopath, racist, maybe even a rapist, but this person still also wants to do something that's in my best interest. So you view yourself as aligned with him and you vote for him anyway. I would argue that I think that the majority of people, if you ask them, do you think Donald Trump has ever committed a felony? Most people that voted for Trump would say yes. But does that really change the reason why they're voting for him? No, absolutely not. People would vote for a murderer if they thought that that murderer was going to give them a better life. So this entire premise that you have to attack people on their character, and you have to look at this, you have to look at, like, what is the value proposition that these people have? No, they wouldn't. Of course they would. Absolutely they would. I mean, we've had people that, like, what are you talking about? It's not even a question. Absolutely they would. How do you think, like, all elections went for, like probably many, how do you think chiefs were chosen in villages? How do you think warlords were decided in ancient times? It's simple. It's simple. Every single time. Yeah, people comes first. Yeah, people's life comes first. They wouldn't admit it probably, and people will never admit it. Like, and again, they would do this, yeah, by force, exactly. And also, when people are afraid, that's whenever they want that person in. And I think that you saw that a lot of people really don't like the fact that Donald Trump is so flippant and outspoken about this. Like, people are really mad when he said, like, oh, like, what's the problem? Well, we're just going to bomb the shit out of him. And then, like, him talking shit about, like, how he killed somebody, posting, like, videos of somebody dying. Oh, he died like a dog. People tone policing him for that and saying this is, like, horrible psychopath behavior. But the moment that psychopath behavior is directed on Iran, someone who, or a group that they feel like deserves it, now they're rooting for Trump and they're saying this is a good thing and people are feeling safe. So really, in a lot of cases, there's a comfort that people have whenever they're criticizing people who are willing and even enthusiastic about being violent. But the moment
Hello, my friends. Some people ask for the evidence of the kaput of the Russian Su-34 fighters bombers. I told you about it a couple of days ago, and definitely would now have the confirmation satellite images. Yeah, Russia took the wreckage out. However, we have the data from the infrared cameras that definitely something was at those parking stands. Russia officially is not confirming the loss of their Su-34, but Russian military bloggers also affiliated with the Russian Air Force, like, for example, fighter bomber, he wrote and reposted the same image saying that no comments, yeah, we definitely lost the airplanes. And there was extra information about the damage of 2 more Su-34. However, now it's hard to say without, like, the evidence from the ground, but Russia is against posting those images. It is understandable that probably will not gonna get those. The detonation was crazy, even some holes in the apron, so airplanes probably were getting ready to fly to Ukraine. They had had some of the bombs. Well, it's just my assumption. Plus, here we have the confirmation not just from Ukrainian officials, but also from the Russian ones. Not officials, again, but we have like the statement of the Russian tech bloggers who know what they're talking about, that they definitely lost the airplanes. I said the guess, but today we also have bad news. Ukrainian Air Force lost one more pilot of F-16 aircraft. Pilot's name was Maxim Ustimenko. He flown, I guess, MiG-29 before. Later on he trained on F-16. It is kind of hard to tell what happened to his airplane the last night, but definitely it was the huge attack of the Russian cruise missiles, Shahed drones on the Ukraine. That's why F-16s are used to hit all of those targets, but something happened. Could be Ukrainian air defense, friendly fire, could be some of the debris coming from the drones after impact of missile, which might hit the airplane. It already happened before with MiG-29 and Karaya pilot, who ejected and saved his life. It could be also malfunction, pilot error, everything. But because it's military, probably we'll never know the cause. In commercial aviation, everything is public. Here, everything is hidden. So totally, Ukraine lost 4 of F-16s, and just 1 was hit by Russian air defense. So Ukraine is definitely losing many of F-16s, and they are not being deployed right at the front line. They are not fighting directly against the Russian airplanes, fighter jets, like for example Sukhoi 30, Sukhoi 35. So I hope Ukrainian military command analyzes the specific cases, aviation accidents, the cases with the friendly fire. I'm sure that at least in the first case it was a friendly fire from the Patriot system. Now it is kind of hard to tell, but also could be the reason. It basically shows that there should be reforms in Ukrainian army. I'm speaking about it for a very, very long time. And situations like that are not okay, and the reason for it, yeah, as I said to you, it is unknown. Yeah, that's the picture from yesterday. Many of the drones went to the western side of Ukraine. Russia also launched Kinzhal missiles, hypersonic missiles, plus cruise missiles. About Shaheds, there were roughly 400 of those launched, and the Ukrainian air defense, well, I would say it's not that effective as it was before. Because first of all, Ukraine tries to save munition for Patriot systems, NASAMS, Iris-T. Second reason that Russia is using new sophisticated Shahed drones sometimes, and also a new tactics where they launch those drones from the very high altitude. Sometimes Ukraine is also using helicopters, but it also depends on the altitude the Shahed drone is flying. I would say that the prospective way to shut down Shahed drones is to use FPV drones, because they may fly really high. So yeah, this drone was shut down from the helicopter. There was just a guy with a machine gun. He opened the door, opened the fire, and this drone went down. Also, yes, we have some of the good news about the possible implementations of the new sanctions on Russia and some of the companies which continue to work with Russian fossil fuels. You probably know Senator Lindsey Graham. He's in the MAGA camp, I would say, but he also understands why Ukraine fights. Well, Graham is actually a piece of but sometimes he's doing the right things, occasionally. So this initiative to implement new sanctions has huge support in Senate. 84 of senators are already willing to vote for it, which means that only 16 not willing to vote for it or opposing. I'm also sure that if Donald Trump gives the green light, this project will be voted in House. And yeah, that law project is out there for already a very long time, at least 3 months. But Lindsey Graham played with Donald Trump recently, and after the game he went to the interview. This video is 1 minute long. I propose to listen to it. Moreover, I'll expedite the video.
Now, I want to ask you about Russia, because you're pushing this bill to impose severe new sanctions on Russia. Have you gotten Trump on board?
Big breakthrough here. So what does this bill do? If you're buying products from Russia and you're not helping Ukraine, then there's a 500% tariff on your products coming to the United States. India and China buy 70% of Putin's oil. They keep his war machine going. My bill has 84 co-sponsors. It would allow the president to put tariffs on China and India and other countries to get them stop him from supporting Putin's war machine to get him to the table. For the first time yesterday, the president told me,
you were playing golf with him?
Yeah, I was playing golf with him. He says, it's time to move your bill. There's a waiver in the bill, Mr. President. You're in charge of whether or not it's to be implemented. But we're going to give President Trump a tool in the toolbox he doesn't have today. After the July break, we're going to pass a bill that will allow the president. Yeah, I think we're in good shape, but he has a waiver. It's up to him how to impose it. But we're trying to get Putin to the table.
You said after the vacation, it means that it could be July the 7th, the closest period time for Senate to vote for the project if Donald Trump really gives the green light. But yeah, it seems like Donnie is ready to walk that way, according to Lindsey Graham. At least he says like that. Plus, there is something new which he said, like if the country supports Ukraine with military, sanctions will not be implemented on the country. So it gives like the variant for the European countries to continue to purchase Russian fossil fuels if they at the same time support Ukrainian military. From what I understood, China doesn't do it. India, well, India may say that they supplied some of their artillery shells, but they are trying to hide it. Well, yes, in general, those are the good news. We'll see how it goes. I hope for July the 7th. No one would say you how it will be, because before, a few days ago, Marco Rubio mentioned that the United States is not going to apply new sanctions on Russia or secondary sanctions. We have two contradicting opinions from Trump's team, but after all, it's up to Donnie himself. So you see how you can change the opinion of Donnie. Just play golf with him, because he spends lots of the time playing golf. Roughly 1 out of 5 months he is a president of the United States, he played golf. 4 months busy promising to solve everything in 2 weeks and bombing Iran. Yeah.
You know, but no big deal. We have a buyer for TikTok, by the way. I think I'll need probably China approval. I think President Xi will probably do it. You know, I'll tell you in about 2 weeks.
That's a big technology company.
He is laughing himself. I'll tell you in 2 weeks. Yeah, Trump is still looking for the buyer for TikTok. He said he got it, but we'll see. The Washington Post also published the article referring Senator Graham and his idea to implement more sanctions. They say that there could be some of the underwater stones which we do not see right now, and Trump tried actually to ease this project, the law project that Lindsey Graham and other senators presented. So we'll check out the final variant, I guess, in roughly 8 days. Guys, here I want to share my thanks to Patreon supporters and to members of the channel. Guys, you are keeping me running, updating almost every day. Thank you so much for it. You are the best. So if you want to support the job that I do here as well, you may check out the link for my Patreon page right in the video description below. If you don't have that opportunity, just press here huge like to the video and subscribe for the channel, because that is how you also help me to boost this video in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much for it. Try to understand what do they celebrate. Switch off the volume. This is Katyusha, a Russian rocket artillery, Soviet rocket artillery system. They launched some of their fireworks from it, and that's how Russia celebrates a student day. Freaking student day. They have total militarization. Also, they have some of the, I guess, artillery systems, artillery cannons. Yeah, the students, they went completely wrong. They don't need students, actually. They need military men. Alright, Lavrov say that Macron and Merz are totally insane. They want to return to the old times that there was the Nazi Germany. But now they're united and they're the same Nazis in Ukraine. They're helping Nazis. So the rhetorics from the Russian Federation, it has absolutely no changes. Yeah, Putin stated that they want to reduce the spendings for the military, but he just said it. It doesn't mean that they will do it, my friends. And even if they do it, it also doesn't mean that Russia is going to stop this war. They're now mostly focused to strike Ukraine's civilian infrastructure, for example, with Shahed drones. They understand that they're scrolling on the front lines. Mostly their offensive was stopped, and especially Sumy operation was complete failure for Russia. Not, I would say, 100% failure. After all, they occupied some of the villages, but it was the same mistake as they've done 2 years ago, attacking Kharkiv region from the north. I guess I've told you even before the start of the Sumy operation from Russia that it will be the same as in and Kharkiv. So I guess those dinosaurs are in the Russian management. They are the Russian elite surrounding the main KGB scumbag Putin, and they're not willing to stop. And this main dinosaur, he completely lost his mind. There was some sort of life with the Russian juniors, the students from, again, it's a military uniform. So here Putin encouraged students to work. He said that then he was a student, he earned quite a lot of money, even enough to buy Zhiguli in half a year. Yeah, what you study we don't care, you need to work, like to boost the Russian economy in one or other way. No one thinks ahead that they need smart students, no. Separately, he greeted young men who are out there in special military operation. Young people like you, he said. So in a way, he also encouraged them to sign the contract with the Russian army. Everyone should go to the Russian army voluntarily. He said those who go for the special military operation show their love to their fatherland or motherland. They're like an example for the other people, especially young people. And the hell is this? A Russian student? Well, it's just a Russian volunteer. They signed the contract with the Russian army. After they got some of the experience in real fight, they refused to continue their contract. That's why they were imprisoned in the local prison camp. Some of them refused to fight because they obtained wounds. Like, for example, this guy, he has no leg. The guy is unable to walk, and they're keeping him here in the prison, trying to force him to go to the front lines again. Oh my god. Okay, your arm or whatever, doesn't matter. The guy is there without leg. That's crazy. They say they have no water. They say they pee into this bucket and no one takes it out because they're locked. Yeah, they're locked there because they probably refuse to fight. Yeah, if with those kind of the wounds, I would refuse as well. Yeah, somehow they got one smartphone with internet access and they filmed this sort of the video. Ooh, Russian army. That's crazy. Situation, then you don't have donkeys. Yeah, you need to take everything on your own. This is the supply delivery in the Russian army. The rifle alone. Here we have extra water probably, or maybe gasoline. This guy with a bike is even lucky. You know guys, there's the old propaganda placard from the Nazi Germany. They show Soviet soldiers, Russian soldiers who are going to Germany and will perform some of the war crimes against civilians. Yeah, I cannot show you this image fully because it's the gore image, but just look at this person. It looks like the guy from the propaganda poster was found. Just look. The same face. This is one more Russian soldier filming his colleague. 100% the same guy from the portrait. Germans were right. Actually. Entertainment or what? What is this? A mental disease center or what? You were wounded on the front lines? Okay, we're gonna also hurt your brain with our creepy, crazy songs. It just sang like, our Ivan will stand for the motherland. Ivan. Yeah, despite outstanding entertainment, those Ivans are not happy at all. Oh, this picture was taken by Ukrainian soldiers. Those are two Kenyan mercenaries who were fighting for the Russian army. Luckily for them, they were imprisoned by Ukrainian army. They're now in a prison camp of Ukraine. As you can see, kind of the good environment they have there. Nature, this guy, I'm sure, has a proper medical care. Again, it was their best decision to surrender. One more Russian soldier who thought that his contract with the Russian army is over again in a jail, refusing to fight to go back because of the wounds, and it's very often that the Russian officers just zero their soldiers who obtain severe wounds, who are not willing to continue, who are disobeying orders, and so on. So we have all this data coming live from Russians themselves. This guy showed here that he has some of the X-rays. You can see, yeah, the broken bones here, broken shoulder, yeah, he cannot move his arm like this, but he was imprisoned, and Russia wants to send him back to fight. Probably he is like ex-prisoner of Russia who signed the contract and was released from the Russian prison, but Russia doesn't need those guys back. They need to put them zero on the front lines. Yes, then I say that Russians are crazy barbarians, I definitely mean it. So they looted some of the kids' bicycle in a town or village they were able to destroy, and that is how they call it liberation. It's like, you know, Golden Horde, they just go, they loot, they rape, they zero everyone, they grab and take. That's the philosophy of this Russian army. No change since the Middle Ages, since Second World War, everything is the same, as you may see. Drill, baby, drill. This is probably a Russian church or the corner of memory, maybe even in some of the local school. And here's the Russian Orthodox priest with some of the foam, probably not made in Russia, is drilling more holes for more Russian heroes. Yeah, you understand what happened to them all. I guess, should I move my image? You see some sort of the beard of the warrior of TikTok army, Ahmad, who was stopped by the Russian military police for the routine check. What those Highlanders did, they called for backup. People came, land cruisers, I guess, or something. They wanted to fight with the representative of the military police. What is happening is absolutely crazy, guys. There is the internal app. Some of the beef is happening. The camera is shaking, body camera. Well, they beaten this guy kind of hard, actually. Just look at those guys from the Ahmad army. Spetsnaz is not even close. They are the main force out there. That's what they tell about themselves. Well, I support both of the sides. Let's make it a whole mess between the Russian police and Ahmad out there in Russia. It could spark lots of the stuff. Continue, Russians and Ahmads. Continue. Adam Kadyrov, the son of Ramzan Kadyrov, the leader of Chechnya. Adam just turned 17 years old and he decided to marry some sort of the girl out there in Chechnya. I think that marrying in 17, according to the Russian law, is illegal, but who cares? Reportedly, Putin even congratulated Adam. I'm a guy in a green Geländewagen with a gun and it's expensive watch. The watch is really expensive, actually. Yeah, he fired, actually, in this video. I will not show it to you here, but it's the usual tradition. He was spotted multiple of the times wearing those watches, and this is the price of those. So it's Jacob & Co. $7 freaking million. $7 million. Swiss made, by the way. Can I click to buy? 7 million. Oh my god. 7 million for watches, and it's not the only son of Ramzan Kadyrov, so just imagine how much money is there. The money which were taken from people of Chechnya, people of Russia, dark schemes, selling lots of the stuff. I mean, weapons and substances. That's huge. Adam might even shadow Jeffrey Bezos' wedding, which happened recently, a couple of days ago. Yeah, obviously Jeffrey has more money, but for the ceremony's planning, I'm not sure who spent more. Guys, remember the case with the Ukrainian prisoner of war who was exchanged, and here's his car, Slava Russia. I get some of the comments from people saying that it is fake, it is not real, the image is fake. Well, we have the full interview with our guy who was exchanged.
That I was done for.
I'm on the clock. Okay.
While they were carrying me, I kept asking them.
So yeah, we have the English version dubbed. It's on United 24 channel. Just put in YouTube search United 24, and maybe I'm gonna put the link for this video in particular because I want you guys to realize what is happening out there in Russia, how they behave towards Ukrainian soldiers whom they imprison. I was surprised that Russian doctors did it. So our guy was wounded. There was operation. He saw the scar. It was a mess. I think they done it for purpose to really make this scar as disgusting as possible. And yeah, they used some sort of the surgeon tool to write those letters as a scars on the belly of this guy. It is crazy, guys. It's done by doctors. If doctors could do that stuff, just imagine what Russian soldiers are doing in Ukraine. It is a pure war crime, and I'm happy that they filmed this interview. I already shared it on my Telegram channel. I will post it also on X. Guys, it is crazy. And I think that there is no more bottom for Russian army and Russia itself to go down. They go even deeper. And guys, about the front lines, I'm not putting too much attention here because Russia is falling little by little. They, for the last time, moved towards Malinivka, and that's all what we have for today. So no other updates are available in Sumy region. Ukraine, as I told you, stopped Russian offensive. Well, at least for now, Russia may try to reinforce their brigades and attack Sumy region once again, but it will fail too. And they're reaching this forest. I was telling you that probably Russia will be stopped out there, but they were stopped before. And there is no movement for the last couple of weeks. Well guys, and now please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. Also subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you help me a lot. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.
Frankly, Canada should be the 51st state.
How they go to Kharkiv, we're going to go and liberate, as they say, Kharkiv. In just a couple of days, the operation will be successful. Here we go, our convoys. All of that are now being demolished. The great role in why Ukraine is so successful in repelling Russian forces, for example, from both channels, is the permission from our allies to use Western-made weaponry to target Russian bases on the Russian territory. So Ukraine cancels the Russian logistics. Russia is unable to send fuel or ammunition at the proper time to the specific bases, and that would make the Russian army stop. However, in other regions, for example, in the Barr-Nunn area in the Yard, Russia is more successful. Some of the Russian trolls or bots say that Ukraine wasn't really successful in both channels. He wasn't able to push Russian army out, but we have the drone images bring correct information about the case. So indeed, Ukraine was successful out there. You can see here that the eastern part of the Yard is now half occupied by the Russian forces, and the rest of this part is located in a gray zone. So this area is in total warfare. I thought that they might use this flight vector as the main one. They decided to take all in as close as possible straight to the south. Well, as you can see over here, there is a more obstacle, and Ukraine has the chance to cut the connection between two points, cutting the bridge and not let Russian help with this at the present stage, so there will be more weaponry needed. Hopefully in July, Ukraine will be able to stall all of the Russian attacks, especially on the east. This direction is the most hard for the Ukrainian army, and today Zelensky and some of the Ukrainian military officials stated about it. The deep state military map confirmed the advancement of the Russian army, so yesterday and today. The last year and this month, Russia failed with all of their strike attempts to get Volodar under control. That's why they now try to go from this side. Here they took few of the fields, so yesterday and today. We're gonna see how it goes. The defense of Volodar and Volodar is quite strong for Ukraine, so I think that the Russian army will not be successful in reaching two of those settlements, at least in the nearby few months. About the Kerch Bridge, the UK government publishes this satellite image, which is dated on 23rd of May. Here you may see lots of the defense barges, and we know that Russia put even more right now. The Russian intelligence probably knows that something is coming, so Russia tries to protect the bridge as hard as they can, putting those barges against the drone boats and more air defense systems to potentially shut down Ukrainian drones. Well, we'll see how it goes in the near future. I think that the Ukraine festival should obtain F-16s, and only after that perform with some sort of the operation to cut the Russian supplies. My friends, again, I'm gonna share some of the videos just on my Telegram because of this platform restrictions, so sorry for the blurred image. What I can possibly show you is this Russian motorcyclist. We have tons of the videos with their useless motorcycle attacks, tons of the videos like that of how they try to reach Ukrainian positions using two-wheel transport. But if our guys are on time launching FPVs, Russian bikers are just doomed because there is no any protection against the FPV drone strikes, as well as there is almost no protection for the China-made Russian golf carts. On this screenshot we see many of the Russian bikes, here, and here, totally 5 of them, and this attack wasn't successful for Russians as well. Again, they're using the China-made off-road motorcycles. And this is the Ukrainian Yakovlev 52, the aerobatic airplane also used for the pilot training. It was filmed from the Russian Zala surveillance drone, the drone which this Yak was able to shut down. Unfortunately, Yak doesn't have the machine guns on the front like in the Second World War. Instead, the pilot who is sitting in the aft cockpit is carrying some sort of rifle to shut down the Russian drones. Quite an interesting tactic, and we see that it works. The Ukrainian-made BTR-4E for Echo was spotted along the village, far too many of the Russian positions in the buildings which Russia was able to occupy. While the rate of fire is pressing leaks like Bradley or something like that. At the same village of Globoko, Ukraine dropped some of the aviation bombs to get rid of the Russian positions, so I believe that there are no Russian soldiers left. And this is the small Russian base of one of the abandoned buildings of the Belgrade Oblast of the Russian Federation. Our guys were able to strike using the FPV drone. It is important to strike Russian bases on their territory because they use them for the further advancement to Ukraine. They also retrieve the Russian soldiers from the front lines, placing them in those abandoned households. So this is what happens when the Russians supply tracks or with their engineering equipment. Without the proper robust supply lines, the army is just incapable. For this reason, Russia is unable to advance very fast. Some of the Russian soldiers even complain about the Ukrainian strikes. Here they say that now they have to leave all of the destroyed tracks and evacuate from the base because it's useless to protect it and nothing left out there. At the same time, the head of the Austrian Defense Ministry said that the permission for Ukraine to strike the Russian bases on the Russian territory is nothing more but crossing the red lines and also escalation. Well, obviously she is correct. That's just crossed the red lines, which it did for itself before. And yes, it is some sort of escalation, which is good because not only Russia is allowed now to escalate. Russia needs to understand that they'll have the response from the past for Ukraine. Putin also said about the red lines which have been crossed, but Putin put lots of the red lines before, which after all appeared just as a brown lines. And there is no any strong response from the Russian side. What did they say? They will supply the same weaponry to their allies who fight against the Western countries in the Middle East, but they already do it. They supply their technologies to North Korea, their fighter jets to Iran, their anti-tank missiles to Hamas, so all of that is really happening. At the same time, Austria itself is not a NATO member, so they cannot judge, and she said that they cannot judge crossing the red lines or escalation. It is the topic of NATO, Ukraine, and Russia. Austria really has nothing to do with that. Well, they help Ukraine a lot, for refugees, but Austria do not supply weaponry for Ukraine. It is their neutral status policy. Similar to Switzerland, but Austria is the part of the EU. So politically and economically, they're still dependent on EU. Alright, what can we see here? That Lufthansa airplane crash-landed near Moscow. Yes, it's not Lufthansa, but this paint job is interesting. It's the private Russian airplane Piper, which performed the forced landing on one of the roads in Russia near Moscow. All the people survived. Why did they use Lufthansa sign Lufthansa delivery? I'm out of clue. An absolute great account for 4 of the hostages who were captured by Hamas in Israel during their attack on 7th of October. All of those people were released from captivity by Israeli special forces. Here we have the drone image of the final part of the operation, the military helicopter, some of the special forces carrying hostages, and helicopter just flies away. I'm very happy for all the hostages, and by the way, this guy is Russian. His name is Andrei Kozlov. He was a security guard of the Supernova Sukkot Gathering Festival, which was attacked by Hamas. He carried no arms, so he wasn't able to fight with Hamas attackers. And I'm very happy for Noah that she has been released as well. Hamas kept all the hostages for long 8 months. Probably you remember those pictures that were shared on the internet, how she'd been taken away, imprisoned in the Gaza Strip. Luckily she's safe now, but obviously traumatized. It is not the first time that Israeli forces performed a successful operation to release their hostages. Unfortunately, many other of the hostages were found dead in Gaza Strip. By the way, if we check out the recent military map update on the Gaza Strip, you may see that IDF is moving eastbound. Israel was really fast in taking the border under control, and now it goes over here. More about the Middle East update. According to the Wall Street Journal, the White House administration is now negotiating with Qatar and Egypt to pressure Hamas for some sort of the peace talks with Israel. And now Doha, so Qatar is pushing the Hamas leaders for negotiations. There are threats for them of RX sanctions, expulsion from Qatar. But there is no positive response from Hamas whether they want to negotiate with Israel or not. Guys, probably you know about this video, which was shared on the internet. I also shared it on my Telegram channel, how Biden tried to sit on invisible chair. The video was commented lots of the times by the Biden's opponents that this guy is old, he's out of clue what he's doing, he has dementia and so on, but actually chairs were there. Biden just decided to sit before everyone else. The mission was a success. Yes, it's too fast, but nevertheless, he did everything correct. So if you see the full picture, it plays well, right? I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, but here everything was okay. The part of the video was cut and exaggerated. The Times came out with an article about Yermak, the head of the president's administration of Zelensky. They said that the authority of the head of the president's office exceeded the authority of the elected officials of Ukraine. The foreign diplomats complained that Yermak controls the access to president. Yermak is personally accused for dismissing Zelensky from the military command. And the Times says the trend that the influence of Yermak on Zelensky is growing. The possibility for creating conditions for corruption in Yermak's environment causes concern. The Times relied to the Western politicians, their opinion on Yermak and Zelensky. However, at the same time, Ukrainian president's office rejected the criticism as a propaganda attacks from Russia. Well, it is hard for me to prove or disapprove the information, but indeed there is a huge influence of Andriy Yermak on President Zelensky, and we all see it from all of the media publications, from independent journalists. And indeed, there is a corruption field still existing in Ukraine, and there is no huge lever to cope with that corruption. From the other Western media sources, we see how our allies are pushing President's office of Ukraine to cope with the corruption problem. And the United States continue to see the corruption as the real threat for Ukraine. Anthony Blinken visited Ukraine the last month, and he also spoke about the corruption, that Ukraine should handle it. So at least the part of this article is unfortunately correct. Yes, again, I'm not spreading any sort of the Russian propaganda on my channel. I'm here commenting on this article. So part of it could be exaggerated or over-exaggerated, but part of it is correct. And yes, I speak about the issues in Ukrainian politics, in Ukrainian government, because it touches really the effectiveness of Ukrainian army and the lives of our soldiers, especially if we speak about corruption. And still in this environment, Ukrainian army is capable to fight against the Russian one. It is just a miracle for me how Ukrainian army is able to do it. Right, again, speaking about the Russian propaganda, those photos indeed were taken in Ukraine by some of the Ukrainian photographer. Ukrainian elderly soldiers who were just hired are going through their training. We can see that they are not young at all. And indeed, there are lots of the elderly soldiers in Ukrainian army, but they're united in separate group, as we see on this picture. As you may judge, the capability of the group is limited. For this reason, they will be not used as the other more young groups. Also, we're out of clue about the duties as guys. Maybe they will fight behind the front lines on artillery. Here you may see that they're at the shooting range, but it is compulsory for everyone to go through the shooting range, even for artillerists and for supply drivers, whatever. So we have the fact was just the training, the drills, but the context is left behind. I'm sure that those guys will not go and fight in trenches, because in some way it's just impossible for them to do. They have to have some physics to fight right front. Now I'm going to show you many of the other pictures of the elderly Russian soldiers, and some of them were just hired by the Russian army too, so without the real context it's hard to judge. And the Institute for the Study of War say that Russia's outlook and military men can guide fast, durable offensive operations. They're just capable to do what they're doing right now. Mid-phase attacks and success. Sorry, I'm publishing this video a little late because there were lots of the Telegram outrages. Telegram is one of my main sources to obtain the information, also ground news, some of the channels on Twitter, and so on. So just now I was able to restore the connection for my Telegram channel. The connection operation lasted for a few hours, so it was really turned on Telegram, and there was no information shared about what particularly caused that. Now, my friends, please don't forget to press a huge like to this video. By doing so, it helps me a lot. And also, please don't forget to check the link for the extra quality of the video description, where you will get 40% off this date. Also, use my personal code for extra benefits. Friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time. Yes, something is happening in Kerch just right now. Locals report about at least 20 of the civilians in the area. Kerch bridge is closed, and I'm just starting recording this video, so yet we are out of the detailed information on what is happening around there. Well, local channels publish this kind of video, mostly they have all the information out there. The picture is just a random filmed from the window. So it could be Russian air defense, or maybe some of the anti-drone boat tools which they continue to use. If you take Astra, a Russian opposition source, they rely on the local channels, and locals report about huge videos. They're all scared, we're scared, you're scared, it's very loud out there. Is the bridge okay? Yes, I have doubts about it. Well, I also have doubts about it. Here we have one more video of the Russian air defense system in operation, so for sure those booms could be because of the launching of those missiles, flying probably in attempt to target backup missiles. So right now I'm waiting for more information, which is coming almost every minute now the case. So more to the end of the video, I'm going to update you once again about the situation in the Kerch breach or Kerch whatever. Well, still, I don't think that Ukraine targeted the Kerch breach this night. No, I think that Ukraine waits for F-16s with their air-to-ground missiles, which could add more firepower to target this infrastructure supply. Hello, my friends, and welcome. My name is Dennis, and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go to the other news. We have absolutely crazy awesome news from our partner and ally Sweden. They're giving to Ukraine the Saab IC-890, which is the radio surveillance airplane. Yes, they're not going to perform the missions for Ukraine. They're just giving this airplane to the Ukrainian army. So who will be the pilots? Well, these could be Ukrainians as well, because basically this is Saab A-340. I mean, the original aircraft type, which was significantly modified to this Ryan training station. The pilot training for this bird is very simple. If you have the airline transport pilot license, excluding the ground force, so totally it could be around 3 months to have everything. But I do not exclude that Swedish pilots will fly this plane at first. So why is it so important? Because Ukraine might use that particular airplane type to make a surveillance over Ukrainian territory and especially over the occupied territories. For now, surveillance is down mostly from the regions of Poland and also in Romania and near Crimea in neutral waters. So the range sometimes is not enough to cover everything what is happening, for example, on the Russian territory. Of course, and earlier, Russia prefers their forces for the new strike region. We're going to speak about it also in this video. But with the new radar, Ukraine might reach also this part. And also might plan the future strikes on Russian territory and Russian airfields, Russian bases, obtaining current information about what is happening on the ground and near here. Also, that surveillance airplane will help Ukraine to identify the enemy missiles and the drones more precisely, so Ukraine might use the air defense systems more effectively. So for all of that, this is the absolutely outstanding offer from our allies. So thank you, Sweden, so much for supporting Ukraine with the crucially needed devices. I told you that the pilot training wouldn't take lots of time for every kind of the airline pilot or the transport pilot in the military. However, to operate this plane, to be a radio operator, it might take the time. So I believe that after all, the Swedish crew will be involved into it. My friends, by the way, if you want to support the job that I do daily on YouTube, you may join the Patreon page. It is available in the personal link in the video description just below, but only if you want to support me. Friends, thank you so much for it. About the Swedish fighter jets, just Su-29 Gripen, well, the talks are still going, whether Ukraine obtains those from future perspective or not. They're not closed, not over. I have the confirmation about it from the ambassador of Sweden in Ukraine. They're talking about those airplane types. You ever know the deal is possible because F-16s, but from the future perspective, Ukraine will have those as well. I'm sure about that. Well, not next year, but in a couple of years, we will see. Also, Sweden is going to deliver some of the armored vehicles and other military support for Ukraine. It's going to be a long-term support worth around 13 billion euros. Quite a lot for Sweden. Well, everything of that will not be spent this year, but it will take many years to support Ukraine military help, which I think tells a lot about how far the support might continue in these years. Yes, indeed. What kind of the airplanes does Ukraine use for the surveillance missions? Well, usually those are the tactical bombers, Boy-24, with the extra radar which you may see from all of the airplanes. This unit is called CRC-14 Tangash, but obviously Swedish sound will be more effective compared to this old. Meanwhile, Russia tries to protect their airplanes, building their hangars right on the apron. For example, this is the military airfield of the Russian Air Force in City. But Russia needs time to build those. For example, they started to build those hangars back in 2022. It's already more than 2 years. They are still under construction. They are not yet used. The airplanes are still prior near to those hangars. It means that Ukraine still has the opportunity to target Russian aviation units. And it is the first airfield where Russia introduced that protection for their airplanes, and there are no signs that they're building new hangars as the Western airfields. So they still need a couple of more years to finish this project elsewhere. Well, this one in particular, they will finish first. So this is the picture before, and this is after. You can see several hangars just on the apron, while the rest of the airplanes are standing on the other apron, not in hangars. So the construction work is still going. Without the permission for Ukraine to use the Western made battery to target Russian Federation territory, Russian bases, mainly. Now we have this map. It's in Cyrillic, sorry, it's in Ukrainian. Nevertheless, you can see the colors. I think that you know some of the geography. Well, in green we see countries which has already agreed that Ukraine might use their weaponry to target the Russian bases on the Russian territory. But the United States, you see, it's yellow. It's under question. Now negotiations from different sides of the forces are going, but it still hesitates to make a final step towards that permission for Ukraine. I'm sure that it will be positive. shown an ember here like Germany does Italy. Well, they are more leaning not to give permission for the weaponry. However, after all, I also think that they will agree on that good. Well, Italy and Belgium, it's not very good word. However, Germany and the United States of America, they should support that move. Otherwise, Ukraine will have the tools to strike the Russian army over there, because those two indicators provide long-range weapons. America and the United States of America provided attackers, missiles, and also different tools, long-range weaponry, which also can be used by Ukraine. So for now, just Storm Shadow and Scout missiles could be used against the Russian bases. And France, together with the UK, are doing a great job convincing other players, other allies, to give their permission for Ukraine. So hopefully it will be resolved very soon. I even expected this week that the United States will give that permission, because the question was lifted in the White House. There were some of the discussions. However, we don't see the final decision yet. Alright, some of the kibbutz were reported in occupied city of Donetsk today, as it was said there was the Russian military base in one of the buildings, and it was captured with this huge kibbutz. We have this information from locals. They report that it was a Russian base out there, with some of the Russian officers constantly working in the place. The deep state military map updates the situation near Chasiv Yar. They say that the Russian convoy was ambushed on the way to the city. Russians actually entered the city. The fighting is ongoing there, but here is the area where they use just infantry forces. Well, today they tried to move their heavy armored vehicles plus tanks out there, and all of that stuff was kaboomed with the help of the FPV drone and the artillery. If you look at the screen, the small screen out here, you might see lots of the holes in the fields. It shows the intensity of the fights out there. It's like a First World War or the Second one. So Russia used the combination of the T-72 tanks together with the new T-90. All of that stuff together with T-90 was ambushed on the way, so we have absolutely great news for Ukraine. Our defenders are still able to repel the Russian mid-waves. However, Russia still moved at a couple of the points of the front lines. Let me show you the update. So first of all, the Tylev village, it's over here. Let's check out the update. Yesterday, today, they're moving out from Tanenka. And from Vodina, so soon they're gonna occupy this part. President Macron promised to deliver his plan about sending the instructors, French instructors, to Ukraine. Well, from some of the analytics, we heard that France is going to put their foreign legion to Ukraine. I have doubts about it, personally, my friends. Also, I heard this information from the Russian mass media sources that France is going to send thousands of the troops to Ukraine, saying that all of those are instructors, but actually they will be in active combat with the Russian forces. Well, I do not exclude that either, but I don't think that France is definitely going to send the combat fighting forces at this particular.
So they cannot control themselves anymore at all, and it's time to exact some revenge on Iran instead before they can do it on us. So I'm actually with the 53%. I think the U.S. should strike Iran quickly, and our new goal in Iran should be regime change. That should be the steadfast goal that we're going for here, not simply striking the nuclear sites. We need to get rid of that Iranian regime, because they're clearly out of their minds, they're crazy, and if we're willing to do that to the U.S., then they're willing to do it to anybody, because the U.S. is the most powerful military country on the planet, and they're willing to come after us. And they're telling people to commit acts of terror to support their goals. So obviously not good, and I think we should deal with that very harshly and very quickly. But of course, what say you?
I would say that this is quite clearly what would have been expected from the Islamic Republic of Iran. It is, after all, a terrorist state. Many people wouldn't know that if they like to pay attention. Some people like Tucker Carlson might benefit from listening to the statements that were made by the Iranian government today. But one thing that is quite important, at least in my opinion, to observe from this, is that the United States of America largely didn't operate with a great deal of benevolence and not turning Ali Khamenei into a smear on the pavement in the last airstrikes that we conducted. That was a general decent amount of self-control, because we could have wiped the guy out, and regardless of what would have happened in Iran, considering that there probably would have been a significant power vacuum at that point, we could have done it anyways, or the Israelis could have done it for the large part. And yet we didn't. And we thought that because we did not do that, that these barbaric leaders inside of Iran were going to understand the benevolence and constraint that we just showed, and then they were going to respond by actually being courteous to us, although we destroyed the nuclear weapon of mass destruction program that they were working on because they wanted to kill millions of Americans and Israelis. Now we're shocked to hear that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now actually calling for the deaths of American officials and leaders and Israeli officials and leaders, and now this is a shocking thing to us. I would say that it's not shocking at all, and we should have seen this coming. And I'd also have to say, on top of that, that the Islamic Republic of Iran's government should not be allowed to exist. A statement like this is one that's absolutely insane, and it is showing that the Islamic Republic of Iran's government is as dangerous, extreme, and rogue as we've been saying here on this channel for the past year and a half. The problem with the Middle East isn't the Middle East. The problem with the Middle East is the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the faster we get to realizing that, and pretty much wiping out all of the top leaders in the Islamic Republic of Iran and seeing their government torn to shreds, I think that that probably would be the quickest and greatest resolution that we would see to the ongoing tumult that continues to grip the Middle East until this very present day. It's an absolutely insane thing to see that the Iranians would call for some sort of extreme action like this, and I would have to say that in my honest opinion, it appears to be a statement of war. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. But I do not believe that we should sit idly by as these statements are being made. I think that we simply should go over and make sure that the committee no longer has the ability to speak to issue further such threats as these or any other top officials in the Iranian government. As a matter of fact, I believe that we should compensate the foreign minister, considering that they did say that compensation was so dearly needed due to the damage that we caused to the Islamic Republic of Iran. I say that we issue compensation to the foreign minister, Ali Khamenei, and any other top Iranian officials by that of the JDAM. I consider that to be a payment in full because the cost of those munitions is far more than their meek, miserable lives could ever have been. But beyond that, we will be moving on into the state of Israel, as it does appear that the Israelis are largely moving into those claims and statements as well, as it does appear that they are saying that end of the conflict is not on their agenda whatsoever, at least according to Israeli media, who are citing higher-up officials within the Israeli government close to Netanyahu. It does appear quite evident at this point that the Israelis, while having backed off for now, will not be backing off for an incredibly long period of time, and they will most likely be returning to strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran here within the near future, as they do believe that the Islamic Republic of Iran still poses a significant threat, even if they are denuclearized, which it seems that's still up in the air at the moment. It appears that they are still a significant threat and danger to the state of Israel through their conventional means, conducting acts of terror through Hezbollah, Hamas, and also conducting general acts of terror through the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran as well. It does appear that the United States of America may also be joining in on those notions as well, because we have been able to hear statements inside the United States that there has appeared, unfortunately I didn't put any things down, but it does appear that they are also considering future bombing operations against the Islamic Republic of Iran, any possible regime change at this point, possibly eliminating Ali Khamenei and top government officials in upcoming airstrikes. But outside of that, we have also been able to hear, and really quickly I do want to say this, I do know that a lot of people are talking about the situation going on in Idaho. Sadly, that is outside of our purview of news. We generally do not cover any domestic topics or developments, and so far we do not know any of the people who were involved in that attack at the moment or who they are affiliated with to even include that into any kind of international world news. There are a lot of extremist groups that do exist within northern Idaho, so it could quite literally be just about any of them. So, of course, it's an unfortunate situation to hear about, but we won't be covering that tonight, and we can't even speculate at the moment on if this weighs into the international situation at all, due to a lack of information about the people who are purportedly conducting this horrendous attack just outside of Coeur d'Alene. So we will be waiting to see if anything develops on that that would make that a part of world news or start to show some sort of a greater Iranian action here on the domestic home front. And if it does not, then it will not make it into our news. It's an unfortunate domestic incident, but that doesn't make it into our news coverage. If it is something that was sponsored or at least supported by the Iranians, it will definitely make it into our news coverage at a later date. Outside of that, though, it does appear that the Middle East is quite a interesting, I guess you could say, cannon that might be going off here quite soon. And I'd have to say that at least at this point, the cannons of the United States and Israel should go off against the Islamic Republic of Iran, because I consider threats against against current serving presidents to be a threat against the United States itself. Much like our prior president, which we also had to make this statement on as well for prior reasons, due to other threats that were issued by other countries, a president of the United States, whether you like them or not, is an elected representative of the United States of America and its citizenry as a whole. All 360 million people can look towards the president of the United States as their elected representative. They are pretty much the United States of America in a human form, at least for the 4 years that they have been elected per term. The fact that a issuance of threat has been made against the president of the United States is not just an issuance of a threat against an American individual, it is an issuance of a threat against the entirety of the United States, attempting to overturn our democratic process where we have voted in this president for the next 4 years, and to try and overturn our decisions, and not only that, completely eliminate our representative of the United States. I consider such things as this to be a grave offense to the United States and all of its citizens, and I believe that we should treat it accordingly, and that U.S. military action should be approved against the Islamic Republic of Iran to ensure that such statements and threats are no longer made by the government that's in Iran, because the people who are in this government at the moment will no longer be there after long. Nevertheless, we are going to be moving on outside of that news and on into East Asia for a moment, as we also were able to hear in East Asia, as a side note of news, that the Chinese are now testing out drone swarms. We were actually able to see this on a Chinese social media platform, and it does appear that a large amount of high-altitude drones were flying over the area, at least where this camera person was, apparently operating in unison, possibly an AI drone swarm. Here's the clip. And you see here, the zooming in, you'll see them here in a second. There are these massive amounts of small white little dots. Look at them, hundreds of them up there. There's an endless amount of them. It's absolutely crazy to see. And it does appear that this is some sort of an AI-controlled, possibly drone swarm.
That's a hell of a lot of them, too. That's kind of scary to see that, actually. That's like, the coordination behind that is wild.
It is absolutely insane.
And they said they launched all these like mini drones from one big mothership drone. Is that what they were saying before?
I believe that is something that they were saying. We don't really know a lot about this clip or any of the details behind it. All we know is that this is just a massive swarm of Chinese drones that appear to be in some kind of testing somewhere within eastern China. But we really don't know much more about it than that.
Interesting. Well, that's certainly fascinating. I know the U.S. is testing our own version of drones like these, and it's a little bit of a different variety, but to see these tested right over the skies of China, that's quite wild. Also, look at that bird flying right in the middle of that swarm, too.
Man, we all know that the birds in China are government drones, much like the ones up there high up in the sky. Those actually appear to be near to the cloud layer or above the cloud layer, as a matter of fact. So these things are flying at quite a significant altitude in an incredibly large amount. We don't really know much more about it than that. It just seems as though the Chinese are starting to develop and test some sort of drone launching delivery method, and also using swarm drones as a common practice. Still, an incredibly interesting one nonetheless, and it is starting to show us that the People's Republic of China is evolving their drone strategies and doctrines as rapidly as they are evolving on the front lines in Ukraine. Meanwhile, we have also been able to get some unfortunate news for all of the people here in the channel that really appreciate and enjoy the A-10 Warthog. The A-10 Warthogs, for the 9 gazillionth time, have been given a final retirement date. It looks like they actually are going to be knocked out of service this time, however, as we were able to hear from FlyTech's network that the U.S. Air Force wants to retire its last 162 A-10 Warthogs in the fiscal year of 2026, which is next year, as a part of a plan to divest 340 total aircraft. And that was according to Defense News. The A-10 Warthogs have been an aircraft that has been wildly popular the entire time that they've been in service, at least with the public. It's an incredibly interesting aircraft. They have been in service since 1977, but the aircraft are starting to become fairly dated by most standards. They do not really bode well in any kind of areas that have anything other than pretty much crystal clear skies with absolutely no contested air superiority, meaning that in a modern battle space, these things don't really have a place anymore. We are hearing that apparently all of these A-10 Warthogs will be eventually replaced by F-35 Lightnings, which are, of course, are far more better qualitatively in every degree. They actually are designed more so to fill in the modern battlefield role, but it does appear that the Air Force has given its final stay of execution this last time, and that all the remaining A-10s will be removed from service by the middle part or the latter part of 2026. So it seems as though that is quite interesting, but we are understanding that we'll be having pretty significant replacements. Either the F-35 or some form of an F-15E or an F-15EX will most likely be replacing all of the A-10s that are being retired from service, as that generally was the plan from the outset, was that the A-10 was eventually going to be replaced by something. It's just that they didn't know what, and now that the F-35 is around, they generally know exactly what's going to be replacing most of these A-10 Warthogs, and they're either going to be replacing them with F-15s or F-35s. But still, a little bit of an interesting development there, and it does appear that a lot of people are talking about what the future of the A-10 Warthog should be. Its chapter in American military service is finally coming to a close after about 50 years of continuous Air Force service. But a lot of people are saying that the A-10 Warthog has the possibility, or at least the great potential, for a second life somewhere else out there in the world, possibly even in the far-flung regions of Eastern Europe, where the war in Ukraine is still raging, and where our fundraiser is currently raging as well to try and get up to $2,500. And it's doing an incredibly good job at that. But Matthew, what are people thinking about the future of the A-10? Now, what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so it looks like people on the question, should the retired A-10 Warthogs be sent to Ukraine? That's the big question. Right now, I think they're set to be scrapped, I believe, but we're really not 100% sure about that. So 55% said yes, Ukraine could use the A-10 very well in the battlefield, while 28% said no, Ukraine is not the best place for it, and 9% said I need more information first. Now, I know initially right off the bat, people are like, well, why not send these to Ukraine? Because, of course, if they're going to be scrapped, let Ukraine at least try to use them the best they can, and let's see how it goes. The only catch to that, though, is that you have to train pilots. That takes some time. It takes a lot of effort, money, and time. We also have to send over the maintenance equipment to maintain this aircraft and train maintainers to actually work on it. And we also have to basically give them places to go to store them, and then we have to actually transport them over there to Ukraine as well. So there is some back-end auxiliary things that have to be done to actually send these, but, you know, between scrapping them and just literally just getting rid of them or sending them to Ukraine, I think it comes down to an issue of, is it worth the cost, basically? Because Ukraine's already using the F-16s very well. The one thing about the A-10s is they're also not fighter jets. I believe they're made for ground support. So they do have a very well-built, titanium bathtub around the cockpit, but they are more susceptible to air defense fire, at least if my knowledge serves me correctly, which could sort of be an issue on the Ukrainian front lines. But in pursuit, what say you?
I would generally have to say that the A-10, in my opinion, is one of the last aircraft that should be given to the Ukrainians ever. It is generally a death trap in the modern day. I don't want to say that to piss a lot of people off. I know a lot of people think that the A-10 is a great and marvelous plane, but on the flip note, the P-47 Thunderbolt, which the A-10 Thunderbolt II is named after, was also a great and marvelous plane in World War II, but that does not mean that it would stand up in the modern battlefield today. The A-10 Thunderbolt is an aircraft that was almost obsolete by design when it was introduced in 1977, and just through the great miracle of a decent amount of modernizations, it was able to survive through the Gulf War and on into the invasion of Iraq and through the war in Afghanistan. But in an actual battlefield scenario, in the modern day where there is contested airspace like completely in Ukraine, of any type, even just man-pads for that matter, the A-10 Warthog is an incredibly dangerous aircraft. The only reason why a lot of people say that the thing is armored like a tank is because it does have that titanium bathtub around the pilot, which protects them from ground fire. But not even incredibly large ground fire, mind you. It's generally just higher caliber rifles, but anything bigger than that, it can still punch through the bathtub. Not the rest of the aircraft is unarmored. And also, at least in the Gulf War, these aircraft did get shot down a good bit. Even then, and the Iraqis weren't really known for having the greatest air defense, but still, a decent amount of A-10s did manage to get shot down. I believe they made up about half of the coalition's air losses through the course of the Gulf War, which is the only conflict they've ever been involved in where there was really any air defense at all to be concerned about at any point. Beyond that, the invasion of Iraq in 2003 and the war in Afghanistan, there was practically no air defense anywhere, so A-10s could operate practically unimpeded most of the time, and they once again gained a great reputation as a result of that. But the battlefields in Ukraine are totally different, and sending up a Ukrainian pilot in one of these into the battlefields of Ukraine, that would end up probably getting a lot of pilots killed, as a matter of fact. It wouldn't really help the Ukrainians out much. And once again, these aircraft are wildly slow. So if it gets into danger, there's no way for it to get out. On top of that, another interesting thing to point out is that even modern aircraft in Ukraine have an incredibly hard time doing anything of value on the front line, on the Russian side or the Ukrainian side. They have to lob bombs or fire off rockets at an indirect fire support roll angle from miles away from the front lines, pretty much indirectly firing at enemy forces to even stand the chance that the most advanced aircraft available either to Ukraine or to the Russians don't get posed to be shot down by the enemy's air defenses, whichever side that is. And the A-10 Warhawk, considering that it is so slow, it could carry rocket pods, so it could be a rocket flinger, but beyond that, there's nothing else that the A-10 Warhawk could really do beyond flinging rockets. The main gun would never be used. Not only that, any other sorts of air-to-ground ordnance that the A-10 could carry would also never be used, meaning that beyond this thing getting to fling rockets and technically be an MLRS of a sort, a flying MLRS of a type, it wouldn't really do much more than that. It just is just way too vulnerable to ground fire. It's too slow. It's just not good enough for them. I would honestly say that sending these to Ukraine would be more of a detriment than it would be a help, because a lot of promising Ukrainian pilots would probably take their last flights in these A-10s, and they would generally get shot down relatively easily. So I would say, I wouldn't want to do it. I would have to be with the majority of that. I generally wouldn't want to send these, at least in my opinion. But with that, I hope that addresses that somewhat well, at least to me. I think, honestly, folks, if we were to give them anything, I think we should just continue to give them more F-16s. The F-16s have done pretty well from what we've been told. Like, they're not doing incredibly bad. The Ukrainians don't use them much, but they've done quite well. These aircraft can pretty much do everything that the A-10 Warhawk does, but better. It's still about as old as a system. It's just that the F-16 has really stood up to the test of time far better than any A-10 Warhawk could. The F-16, from what I know, is still going to be in service probably on up into the 2040s, and the A-10 is getting retired just next year. So that kind of tells you all how much better the F-16 is compared to the A-10, because even the most advanced Air Force in the world doesn't want to get rid of the F-16s until they're about 60 years old, at least in service, and are gray in the whiskers for the large part of that point. So hopefully we'll be able to see that more F-16s are given to them that are either being retired out of U.S. Air Force service or are being retired from other European countries, and the United States can just continue to supply a great deal of spare parts and ordnance for the F-16s to use and not give them a death trap